The rain came down like shattered glass. Cold. Relentless. Each drop a needle against skin already torn and bruised. She stumbled through the forest, barefoot, her dress, what was left of it, clinging to her body like a second skin of mud and blood. The hem had caught on something miles back. She'd ripped it free without looking, without stopping, because stopping meant dying. Her name was Marin. And tonight, she was running out of time. The trees blurred around her, black sentinels in a world drowning in darkness. No moon. No stars. Just the suffocating weight of storm clouds pressing down on the canopy, turning the forest into a tomb. Her breath came in ragged gasps, each inhale a knife to the ribs. Something was broken inside her. She knew that. Had known it since the third time she'd fallen, and felt the sharp crack of bone shifting where it shouldn't. But she couldn't stop. Behind her, the sounds of the hunt echoed through the rain. Growls. Snarls. The wet thud of paws against earth. They were closing in. She could smell them now, iron and rage, the scent of wolves who had tasted betrayal and wanted blood in return. Her blood. She pressed a hand against her side, felt the warmth there, sticky and wrong. The wound wasn't deep, but it was enough. Enough to slow her down. Enough to leave a trail even the rain couldn't wash away. She'd tried to cover it, pressing moss and mud against the gash, but it didn't matter. They were born for this. Bred for this. Tracking prey through impossible terrain was in their nature. And she had made herself prey the moment she'd opened that message. The memory stabbed through her, sharper than any claw. She'd been in the grand hall, tucked into the corner shadows where no one bothered to look. The Alpha King's bonding ceremony. That's what they'd called it. A celebration. A night of unity and strength, where the most powerful wolf in 5 territories would take a chosen companion to stand beside him. Not a true mate bond, those were rare, almost myth now, but a political alliance. A beautiful, cunning she-wolf from the northern packs, all golden hair and sharp smiles. Marin had been there because she had to be. Because even the lowest members of the pack were required to attend, to bow their heads and bear witness. She was nothing. A shadow. The girl who cleaned the kitchens, who scrubbed floors, who kept her eyes down and her mouth shut because that's what you did when you were broken. When you were cursed. She'd felt it the moment he'd walked into the hall. That pull. That impossible, undeniable pull that legends were made of. It had hit her like a fist to the chest, stealing her breath, making her heart slam against her ribs so hard she thought it might crack them open. Her wolf had stirred for the first time in years, rising from the grave she'd buried it in, whimpering and clawing to get out. Mate. The word had whispered through her blood like a prayer. Like a promise. And when she looked up, when she dared to lift her gaze, she'd seen him. Cashin. The Alpha King. Tall. Broad-shouldered. A warrior carved from stone and shadow, with eyes like winter storms and a presence that made grown wolves drop to their knees. He'd been standing at the center of the hall, laughing at something the northern she-wolf had said, his hand resting casually on her waist. He hadn't looked at Marin. Hadn't even glanced her direction. But she'd felt it anyway. That thread between them. That golden, unbreakable tether that the old stories spoke of. It burned in her chest, searing and undeniable, and for one foolish, desperate moment, she'd thought, maybe he feels it too. Maybe this changes everything. She'd pulled out her phone with shaking hands. Typed out the message she'd rewritten a dozen times in her head. Simple. Desperate. A plea wrapped in hope she had no right to carry. I need to talk to you. It's important. Please. Asterisk. She'd hit send before she could talk herself out of it. And then she'd waited. 1 minute. 5. 10. The ceremony had continued around her. Music and laughter and the clinking of glasses. The northern she-wolf had leaned into Cashin, whispered something in his ear. He'd smiled. Pulled her closer. And then he'd kissed her. Right there. In front of everyone. A kiss that lingered. That deepened. That made the crowd erupt in cheers and howls of approval. Marin's phone had stayed silent in her hand. He never looked at it. Never even checked. That's when she'd felt it. the bond thin and fragile as new ice, beginning to crack. Not break. Not yet. But fracture. Splinter. The pain of it had driven her to her knees right there in the shadows, one hand pressed to her chest as if she could hold the pieces together. She'd left the hull, stumbled out into the night, gasping for air that wouldn't come. And that's when they'd found her. The elders. 3 of them, moving through the darkness like specters. Their eyes had gleamed in the torchlight, cold and knowing. "You felt it, didn't you?" the eldest had said. Her voice like rusted metal. The bond. Marin had tried to run. They'd been faster. "Did you really think he'd choose you?" Another elder, stepping close, her breath sour with herbs and old magic. A broken wolf. A girl cursed with power too dangerous to control. "You're a threat, child. You always have been." "I didn't." Marin had tried to speak, tried to explain. "I didn't choose this." "No. But your bloodline did. And now you'll pay the price for it." They'd attacked without warning. No trial. No mercy. Just claws and teeth and the cold efficiency of wolves who'd made their decision long before tonight. Marin had fought back. And that's when it happened. The power she'd spent years suppressing, burying, pretending didn't exist, it exploded out of her like a dying star. Silver flame. Bright and burning and wrong. It had poured from her hands, her chest, her very bones, and the elders had screamed as it touched them. One had fallen. The others had fled. And Marin had run. Run until her legs gave out. Until her lungs burned. Until the forest swallowed her whole and the rain came down to wash away the evidence of what she was. What she'd always been. A mistake. She crashed through a thicket now, thorns tearing at her arms, her face. Didn't matter. Nothing mattered except the distance between her and the wolves baying for her blood. Her foot caught on a root and she went down hard, the impact driving the air from her lungs. For a moment, she just lay there in the mud, tasting copper and earth, her body screaming at her to give up. It would be easier. To just stop. To let them find her. But then she thought of his face. Cashin's face. The way he'd smiled at that woman. The way he'd never even looked at his phone. At her message. Her last desperate attempt to reach him before everything fell apart. Anger surged through her. Hot and vicious and alive. She pushed herself up. Kept moving. The forest opened up ahead, spilling her out onto the edge of a ravine. The river below churned white and furious, swollen from the storm. No way across. No way around. Just a 30-foot drop into water that would crush her against the rocks before drowning what was left. Behind her, the growls grew louder. Closer. She turned, pressing her back against a tree, her hand clutching her side. Blood welled between her fingers. Too much of it. The world tilted slightly, her vision graying at the edges. "Come on," she thought desperately. "Fight. You've survived worse than this." But had she? The wolves emerged from the tree line. 5 of them. All in their shifted forms, all massive and snarling, their eyes reflecting the lightning that split the sky above. She recognized them. Pack enforcers. Loyal to the elders. Loyal to the old ways that said girls like her didn't deserve to live. The largest one. A gray beast with scars crisscrossing his muzzle, stepped forward. His lips pulled back from his teeth. Marin lifted her chin. If she was going to die tonight, she'd do it looking them in the eye. The wolf lunged. And that's when the world exploded with the roar of something far more ancient than anger. A shape crashed into the gray wolf mid-leap, sending it sprawling into the mud. Bigger. Faster. A blur of black fur and lethal grace. The new wolf, if that's even what it was. Moved like violence given form, all coiled power and brutal efficiency. The pack scattered, regrouping, but the black wolf positioned itself between them and Marin. Protecting her. She blinked through the rain, trying to focus, trying to understand what was happening. The black wolf's shoulders were broader than any she'd ever seen. Its eyes, when they flicked back toward her for just a heartbeat, were silver. Not the yellow gold of a normal shifter. Silver. Like starlight trapped in ice. The gray enforcer growled a warning. The black wolf's response was a sound that made Marin's bones vibrate. Primal. Absolute. A dominance so complete that even she felt the urge to drop her gaze. The pack hesitated. Then, one by one, they retreated into the forest. Gone. The black wolf turned to face her fully. Marin's legs gave out. She slid down the tree trunk, landing hard on the ground, her vision swimming. The wolf approached slowly, carefully, as if she were something fragile. Something that might shatter. It shifted. The transformation was seamless. Bones reshaping for reseeding until a man crouched in the mud before her. Not just any man. She knew him. Everyone knew him. Cashin. The Alpha King. His eyes, those impossible silver eyes, locked onto hers, and even through the pain, through the shock, she felt it again. That pull. That bond. He was soaked through, his dark hair plastered to his face, his chest heaving with exertion. Blood smeared his jaw. Not his blood. Marin, he said. Her name. He knew her name. Her vision blurred. The edges of the world started to fade. How, she tried to ask, but the word dissolved into nothing. He moved closer, his hand reaching out. And then everything went black. Before you fall too deep, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Because this story? It's only just beginning. And, trust me, you're going to want to see where it goes. Asterisk asterisk. The cold woke her. Not the gentle kind. Not the soft brush of winter air or the cool kiss of evening. This was the cold of stone. Of earth. Of being somewhere deep beneath the world where warmth was a memory and comfort a foreign concept. Marin's eyes opened slowly, each blink a struggle against the weight pressing down on her lids. The ceiling above her was rough-hewn rock, dark and glistening with moisture. Torchlight flickered somewhere to her left, casting dancing shadows across uneven stone. A cave. She was in a cave. Her body ached in places she didn't know could ache. Every breath sent sharp spikes of pain radiating through her ribs. Her side, where the wound had been, throbbed with a dull, persistent heat. She tried to sit up and immediately regretted it, a gasp tearing from her throat as agony lanced through her. Don't move. The voice came from the shadows. Deep. Rough. Edged with something that sounded almost like concern? She froze, her heart kicking into a faster rhythm. Her wolf stirred inside her, restless and wary, but too weak to do more than whimper. Slowly, carefully, she turned her head toward the source of the voice. He sat against the far wall, barely illuminated by the torchlight. Cashin. Still shirtless, his skin marked with old scars and fresh scratches from the fight. His arms rested on his bent knees, his posture deceptively casual, but his eyes, those strange, silver eyes, tracked her every movement with an intensity that made her skin prickle. You're awake, he said. Not a question. An observation. Marin swallowed, her throat dry as sand. Where? Her voice cracked. She tried again. Where are we? Somewhere they won't find you. They? Your pack. Or what's left of it. He shifted slightly, and she caught the faint wince he tried to hide. He was hurt too. The ones who wanted you dead. The memory crashed back into her. The elders. The attack. The silver flame bursting from her hands like a curse made manifest. She looked down at her palms, half expecting to see them still glowing, still burning, but they were just hands. Dirty. Bruised. Human. I didn't mean to, she started. I know what you meant to do. His voice cut through hers, not harsh but absolute. And I know what you are. Her breath caught. He knew. Of course he knew. He'd seen it. The power. The flame. The thing that made her a monster in the eyes of everyone she'd ever known. She waited for the accusation. The disgust. The fear. It didn't come. Instead, he stood. Moved closer with that predatory grace that marked him as something more than human, more than even the average shifter. He crouched beside her, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his skin, smell the forest and rain and something else, something wild and electric that made her wolf whine. How long have you known? He asked quietly. Known what? About the bond. The question hit her like a physical blow. She stared at him, searching his face for, what? Recognition? Regret? But his expression was unreadable, carved from granite and shadow. She didn't know how to answer that. Since the moment I saw you. Since my heart recognized something my mind couldn't understand. Since every cell in my body started screaming that you were mine and I was yours and none of it mattered because you chose someone else. The ceremony, she finally whispered. I felt it during the ceremony. Something flickered in his eyes. There and gone too fast to name. The message, he said. That was you. Not a question. A statement. She nodded, shame burning through her chest. You didn't. You never looked at it. No, the word was flat. Final. I didn't. Silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. I was distracted, he continued, his jaw tightening. Saris, the woman from the northern pack, she was persuasive. And I was a fool. He exhaled slowly, a sound like controlled fury. By the time I checked my phone, you were already gone. And then the elders reported an attack. Said a rogue wolf had killed one of them and fled into the forest. I'm not a rogue, Marin said, her voice stronger now, edged with defiance. They came after me. They tried to. I know. He held up a hand, cutting her off. I know what they tried to do. I know what they've always wanted to do to you. She blinked. What? His eyes bore into hers. You think I don't know about you, Marin? About your bloodline? Your gift. The last word was spoken with careful neutrality, but she heard the weight beneath it. The elders have been petitioning for your exile since you were 16. Since the first time your power manifested. Shock rolled through her. You knew. I'm the Alpha King. I know everything that happens in my territory. He sat back slightly, putting a few inches of distance between them, but his gaze never wavered. I've been watching you for 3 years. The world tilted. Watching me, she repeated, the words tasting strange on her tongue. Making sure you were safe. Making sure they didn't act on their threats. His expression hardened. Tonight I failed. You saved me, she whispered. After you nearly died. Something raw flashed across his face. Guilt. Anger. If I had just looked at my phone. He stopped himself, jaw clenching. But I didn't. And you paid the price for my weakness. Marin didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know how to process the idea that this man, this impossibly powerful, unreachable man, had been watching over her. Protecting her. While she'd been scrubbing floors and hiding in shadows, thinking herself invisible. Why, she finally asked. Why protect me? If you knew what I was, why not just let them? Because you're not what they say you are. His voice dropped lower, rougher. You're not a threat. You're not a curse. You're... He stopped. The air between them crackled with unspoken words. I'm what? She pressed. His eyes held hers for a long moment. Then he stood, moving back toward the shadows. You're injured. You need rest. We'll talk more when you're stronger. Cashin. Sleep, Marin. It wasn't a command. It was a plea. Please. Just to sleep. She wanted to argue. Wanted to demand answers. But her body betrayed her, exhaustion dragging her down like an anchor. Her eyes drifted closed despite her best efforts. The last thing she heard before darkness claimed her again was his voice, so quiet she might have imagined it. I'm sorry. For all of it. I'm so damn sorry. Time became a strange, fluid thing in the cave. Marin woke and slept in cycles she couldn't track. Sometimes the torches burned bright, casting warm amber light across the stone walls. Other times, darkness pressed in so completely she couldn't tell if her eyes were open or closed. But through it all, one constant remained. Him. Cashin was always there. Sometimes sitting in the shadows, watching over her with those unnerving silver eyes. Other times closer, checking her wounds with gentle hands that seemed too careful for a warrior of his reputation. He brought her water in a carved wooden cup. Broth that tasted of wild herbs and smoke. He never spoke much during these moments, and she was too weak, too confused to push for conversation. But she felt him. The bond between them pulsed like a second heartbeat, growing stronger with each passing hour. It was maddening, comforting, terrifying. Because she could sense things now, fragments of his emotions bleeding through the connection before he could lock them away. Guilt. Fury. Something else that felt almost like longing. On what might have been the third day, or perhaps the fourth, she woke to find him tending the fire near the cave entrance. Real daylight filtered in from outside, weak and gray, but daylight nonetheless. The storm had passed. She pushed herself up slowly, biting back a groan as her ribs protested. The pain was better now. Duller. Her side had been bandaged with strips of clean cloth, and when she cautiously peeled back the edge, she saw that the wound had already begun to heal. Faster than it should have. Cleaner than it had any right to be. You heal quickly, Cashin said without turning around. It's the bloodline. The silver flame comes from the same source that makes your body resistant to normal shifter weaknesses. Marin let the bandage fall back into place. How do you know so much about it? About me. He was silent for a long moment, poking at the fire with a branch. Sparks spiraled upward, dissolving into ash. Because I made it my business to know, he finally said. He set the branch aside and turned to face her, his expression guarded. After the first time the elders came to me, demanding your execution, I started researching. Looking into the old texts. The forgotten histories. He moved closer, settling onto the ground a few feet away from her, close enough to talk, but far enough to maintain a careful distance. Your bloodline is ancient. One of the oldest. Before the packs split into territories, before the councils and the hierarchy, there were wolves who carried a different kind of power. Wolves who could channel the magic of the earth itself. The silver flame, Marin whispered. He nodded. It was considered sacred once. A gift from the moon goddess herself. But like all things, it became feared. Misunderstood. The story shifted over generations. What was once holy became cursed. What was once revered became hunted. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the fire. My grandmother used to tell me stories. Before she died, she said our family was blessed, that we were chosen. But then the power manifested in me and she swallowed hard. Everyone looked at me differently, like I was something diseased, something that needed to be put down before I infected anyone else. They were afraid, Cashin said quietly. Fear makes people cruel. Were you afraid? The question slipped out before she could stop it. When you saw what I did to the elders, were you afraid of me? His eyes found hers, and the intensity in them stole her breath. No, he said. Simple. Absolute. I was afraid for you. There's a difference. The bond between them flared, warm and golden, and she felt the truth of his words settle into her bones. I don't understand, she admitted. Any of this. Why you're helping me. Why you're. She gestured helplessly between them. Why you're here. He exhaled slowly, running a hand through his dark hair. It was longer than she'd realized, falling just past his collar, wild and unkempt. He looked different here, away from the polished grandeur of the pack compound. Raw. More real. Do you know what it feels like? He asked suddenly. To have your wolf recognize its mate, but your human side is too blind, too stupid to see it until it's almost too late? Her heart stuttered. I was 20 when I became Alpha King, he continued, his voice low and rough. Too young. Too arrogant. I thought I could do it all, lead 5 territories, unite fractured packs, bring peace to a world that's been at war for centuries. And for 10 years I tried. I made alliances, negotiated treaties, played the political games because that's what was expected. His jaw tightened. The elders kept pushing for a bonding ceremony, kept saying I needed a strong mate to secure my position. Someone from a powerful bloodline. Someone who could give me heirs and strengthen alliances. Marin's stomach twisted. Saris. Saris, he confirmed. Beautiful. Clever. From one of the oldest northern packs. On paper, she was perfect. And he shook his head, disgust flickering across his features. I was practical. Cold. I agreed to the bonding because it made sense strategically. Because I'd convinced myself that true mates were just stories. That the bond was something our ancestors invented to romanticize what was really just biological compatibility. But you felt it, Marin said softly. At the ceremony. You felt the bond. His eyes closed briefly. My wolf felt it. He'd been restless for days leading up to the ceremony, pacing, agitated, but I ignored him. Told him to settle down. And then, he opened his eyes, and the pain in them was devastating. Then you walked into that hall. You were trying so hard to be invisible, tucked into the corner shadows like you didn't deserve to take up space. But I felt you the moment you entered. My wolf went absolutely wild. Started clawing at my control, demanding I go to you. But I fought him. Pushed him down. Because I was in the middle of a ceremony. Because Saris was right there, and everyone was watching, and I'd made a commitment. You kissed her, Marin whispered. The memory still burned. I kissed her. His voice was hollow. And the entire time, my wolf was howling. Raging. Telling me I was making the biggest mistake of my life. But I ignored him. Silenced him. Chose duty over instinct. He leaned forward, bracing his forearms on his knees. It wasn't until hours later, after the ceremony, after Saris had finally left me alone, that I checked my phone. Saw your message. And I knew I'd fucked up. Marin's throat tightened. You came looking for me. I ran, he corrected. Shifted and ran through the compound, following your scent. But you were already gone. And then the elders reported the attack, and his hands clenched into fists. I've never moved so fast in my life. When I reached the forest and caught your scent mixed with blood, I thought. He stopped, jaw working. I thought I was too late. Thought I'd lost you before I ever really had you. Silence filled the cave, broken only by the crackle of the fire. The other wolves, Marin said. The ones who were hunting me. You stopped them. I would have killed them if they'd touched you again. No hesitation. No doubt. Just cold, lethal certainty. I sent out an order that night. Anyone who harms you answers to me personally. Anyone who even threatens you will be exiled from all 5 territories. She stared at him, trying to process the magnitude of what he was saying. You can't do that. The elders answer to me. His voice dropped to something dangerous. They seem to have forgotten that in recent years, let themselves believe they have more power than they do. But I reminded them. Very clearly. What did you do? I paid them a visit. A grim smile touched his lips. The 2 who survived your attack. Made sure they understood that you were under my personal protection. That any future attempts on your life will be considered an act of treason against the crown. Marin's mind spun. They'll fight back. They'll say I'm dangerous. That I killed one of their own. Let them say it. He shifted closer, close enough that she could see the flecks of darker silver in his eyes, like storm clouds gathering. I've seen what you can do, Marin. I saw the silver flame. And you know what I thought when I saw it? She shook her head mutely. I thought it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever witnessed. His voice softened. You were defending yourself against 3 wolves who wanted you dead. You were injured, terrified, alone. And you still fought back. Still stood your ground. That's not a curse. That's power. Real power. The kind that can't be taught or inherited through political alliances. The kind that just is. Warmth flooded through her chest, radiating outward until her fingers tingled with it. The bond hummed between them, growing stronger, more solid. I don't know how to control it, she admitted quietly. The flame. It only comes out when I'm scared or angry. When I'm desperate. I've tried to summon it before, when I felt safe, but nothing happens. That's because you've been taught to suppress it your whole life. Cashin reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, but she didn't. His hand covered hers, rough and warm. You've been told it's wrong. Dangerous. Something to hide. But what if it's not? What if it's exactly what you're supposed to be? His touch sent electricity racing up her arm. She stared down at their joined hands, at the way his fingers dwarfed hers, scarred and strong and certain. There's a place, he said quietly. Deep in the northern mountains. A temple that was abandoned centuries ago, back when your kind were still honored. The texts say it was built for the flame-bearers. A place where they could learn to harness their gifts without fear. Her eyes snapped to his. You want to take me there? I want to help you understand what you are. Who you are. His thumb brushed across her knuckles, a gentle, grounding touch. But only if you're willing. I'm not going to force you into anything. Not after, he trailed off, pain flickering across his features again. Not after I've already made so many choices without considering what you wanted. Marin's chest tightened. Here was the Alpha King, the most powerful shifter in 5 territories, offering her a choice. Treating her like she mattered. Like her wants and fears and desires were worth considering. It was more than anyone had ever given her. Why? She asked again, because she still couldn't fully wrap her mind around it. Why does any of this matter to you? The bond, you could reject it. Break it. Choose someone else. Someone who isn't, she gestured at herself helplessly. Someone who isn't broken. His hand tightened on hers. You're not broken. I'm cursed. You're extraordinary. The words came out fierce, leaving no room for argument. And the bond isn't something I can reject. Believe me, if it were, things would be a lot simpler. But it doesn't work that way. Not for true mates. The bond is already there, already formed. The only question is whether we choose to honor it or spend the rest of our lives fighting against something that's written into our very souls. She searched his face, looking for deception, for manipulation, for any sign that this was some elaborate game. But all she saw was raw honesty. Vulnerability. A man who'd made mistakes and was trying desperately to fix them. I don't know if I can trust you, she whispered. The admission hurt, but it was true. You watched me for 3 years and never said anything. Never approached me. Let me think I was nothing. No one. And then at the ceremony you... I know. His voice cracked slightly. I know what I did. And I know I don't deserve your trust. But I'm asking for a chance to earn it. That's all. Just a chance. The bond pulsed between them, insistent and alive, urging her toward him. But Marin had learned long ago that wanting something and trusting it were 2 very different things. She pulled her hand from his slowly. Saw the flash of hurt in his eyes before he masked it. If we do this, she said carefully. If we go to this temple, you need to understand something. I'm not doing it because of the bond. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for me. Because I'm tired of being afraid of what I am. Tired of hiding. Something like respect flickered across his features. Fair enough. And another thing. She met his gaze steadily. That woman. Saris. The bonding ceremony. What happens with that? Cashin's expression hardened. I dissolved it. The morning after I found you. Saris wasn't pleased, but she's not stupid. She knew the moment I explained about the true mate bond that she'd lost. Political alliances mean nothing in the face of a bond recognized by the moon goddess herself. The elders can complain all they want. I've made my choice. He stood, offering her his hand. The question is, have you made yours? Marin stared at his outstretched hand. Calloused. Strong. A hand that had killed but had also tended her wounds with impossible gentleness. A hand connected to a man who'd failed her, yes. But who was also standing here now, offering her something no one else ever had? Hope. She reached out and took his hand. He pulled her to her feet carefully, steadying her when she swayed slightly. They stood close, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. We leave at nightfall, he said quietly. It's a 3-day journey to the temple. We'll travel in wolf form most of the way, it's faster, and will be harder to track. Can you shift? She nodded. It's been a while, but yes. Good. His hand still held hers, and he didn't seem in any hurry to let go. Marin, I need you to know something. Whatever we find at that temple, whatever you discover about your power, it doesn't change anything. Not for me. Not for the bond. You could be the most dangerous creature in all 5 territories, and I'd still... He stopped himself, jaw tightening. Still what? She prompted. His eyes held hers. Still think you were worth every risk. The air between them felt charged, electric. For a moment, she thought he might kiss her. Saw the desire flicker in his gaze, felt the answering pull in her own chest. But he stepped back, releasing her hand. Get some rest, he said, his voice rougher now. Tonight, we run. He moved toward the cave entrance, but paused before stepping out into the daylight. Glanced back at her over his shoulder. "For what it's worth," he said quietly. "I see you now. All of you. And I'm not looking away again." Then he was gone, leaving her standing in the flickering firelight with her heart racing and the bond singing through her veins. She pressed a hand to her chest, feeling the steady thrum of it there. This impossible, undeniable connection to a man who'd hurt her, saved her, and now promised to help her become something more than the broken girl she'd always believed herself to be. Outside, she heard him moving. Gathering supplies, probably. Preparing for the journey ahead. Marin closed her eyes and took a slow breath. 3 days to a forgotten temple. 3 days alone with the Alpha King. 3 days to figure out if this bond was a blessing or just another curse in disguise. She opened her eyes, staring down at her hands. Ordinary hands. Scarred and rough from years of kitchen work. But capable of summoning silver flame. Capable of killing. Capable of so much more than she'd ever imagined. What am I becoming? She wondered. But the cave offered no answers. Only the crackle of the dying fire and the distant sound of Cashin's movements outside. She moved to the entrance, peering out into the gray daylight. The forest stretched endlessly in all directions, wild and untamed. Somewhere out there, the pack was searching for her. The elders were plotting. The world she'd known was crumbling. And somewhere beyond it all, a forgotten temple waited. Holding secrets. Answers. Perhaps even salvation. But first, she had to survive 3 days in the wilderness with a man who made her wolf sing and her human heart stumble. A man who'd failed her once and might very well fail her again. A man who was her mate, whether she wanted him to be or not. She touched her chest again, feeling the bond pull steady and strong. 3 days asterisk, she thought. Asterisk 3 days to decide if I'm brave enough to trust him. To trust this, asterisk. Outside, Cashin appeared around the side of the cave, carrying fresh wood for the fire. He looked up and caught her watching him. For a moment, they just stared at each other across the distance. Then he smiled. A small, uncertain thing, but genuine. And despite everything, despite the fear and the doubt and the pain still healing in her side, she felt something unfurl in her chest. Something that might have been hope. Or might just have been the beginning of a fall she wouldn't survive. Only time would tell. Night fell like a curtain dropping over the forest. Marin stood at the mouth of the cave, watching the last traces of gray light bleed from the sky. The air had turned sharp and cold, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. Behind her, Cashin moved with quiet efficiency, extinguishing the fire, scattering the ashes, erasing any evidence they'd been here. Covering their tracks. She'd changed into clothes he'd brought, simple, dark, meant for travel. The fabric was rough against her still healing skin, but it was clean and warm, and that was more than she'd had in days. Her old dress, torn and bloodied, lay in a discarded heap near the back of the cave. A ghost of who she'd been. Ready? Cashin's voice came from behind her. She turned to find him watching her, a pack slung over one shoulder. He dressed too, though minimally, just dark pants and boots. His chest remained bare, and she tried not to stare at the way muscle moved beneath scarred skin, the way torchlight had painted him in shades of bronze and shadow. As ready as I'll ever be, she said. He nodded, then hesitated. The shift might be difficult. If you haven't done it in a while, your wolf might resist. Just take your time. Don't force it. She appreciated the concern but didn't need it. Her wolf had been stirring restlessly since she'd woken, pacing beneath her skin, eager to run. Eager to be close to him in the way only wolves could be, without the complications of human words and human doubts. I'll be fine, she said. Something flickered in his eyes. Respect, maybe. Or uncertainty about whether she truly would be. He set the pack down and stepped back, giving her space. I'll shift first. Follow my lead once you're ready. We'll head north through the deep forest, avoid the main territories. It'll take us longer, but we're less likely to encounter patrols. She nodded, her heart already beginning to race. Not from fear. From anticipation. Cashin closed his eyes, and the shift took him. She'd seen wolves transform before, had witnessed the painful, awkward changes of young shifters learning to control their bodies. But this was different. Cashin's shift was seamless, fluid, like watching water pour from one vessel to another. One moment he stood before her, man-shaped and solid. The next, a massive black wolf stood in his place. He was enormous, easily twice the size of a normal wolf, with shoulders that rippled with coiled strength. His fur was pure midnight, so dark it seemed to swallow light. And those eyes, still silver, still impossibly bright, fixed on her with an intelligence that was wholly human and wholly animal at once. Beautiful. The word whispered through her mind unbidden. He was beautiful. The black wolf lowered his head slightly, waiting. Maren took a breath and reached inward, toward the part of herself she'd buried for so long. Her wolf rose to meet her immediately, eager and hungry, and the shift crashed over her like a wave. Pain. Always pain with the shift, bones breaking and reforming, muscles tearing and reknitting, skin splitting to make way for fur. But this time, something was different. The pain felt cleaner somehow, sharper. And underneath it, a surge of power that made her gasp, or would have, if she'd still had a human throat. The world reformed around her. Sharper. Clearer. Every scent magnified 1,000-fold. She could smell the forest, layers upon layers of it. Old growth and new. Animal trails and water sources. And him. Gods, she could smell him. Wild and electric and utterly intoxicating. She looked down at her paws, smaller than his, but still strong, and saw the glint of silver threading through her fur. Not pure silver like her flame, but hints of it. Moonlight caught in shadow. The black wolf approached slowly. Circled her once, assessing. His scent washed over her, and her wolf whined low in her throat. Recognition. Want. The bond thrummed between them, even stronger now in this form where instinct ruled over logic. He touched his nose to her shoulder. A gesture of greeting. Of acceptance. Then he turned and ran. She followed without thought, her body remembering what her mind had tried to forget. The rhythm of 4 legs instead of 2. The way muscles bunched and released. The pure, uncomplicated joy of movement. They ran through the forest like ghosts, weaving between trees, leaping over fallen logs and trickling streams. The world blurred into shadow and silver moonlight. Her wounds didn't ache anymore. Her ribs didn't protest. In this form, she was whole. Strong. Everything she'd never been allowed to be as a human. Cashin led them north and west, following paths only he seemed to know. Sometimes he'd pause, ears swiveling, testing the air for threats. Then they'd move again, always pushing deeper into wilderness where human and shifter presence grew sparse. They ran for hours. Maren lost herself in it. The mindlessness. The simplicity. No past. No future. Just the ground beneath her paws and the night air in her lungs and the black wolf running ahead of her, his silver eyes occasionally glancing back to make sure she followed. She always followed. When he finally slowed, the moon had reached its apex. They'd entered a part of the forest so old the trees seemed to have their own consciousness, their trunks thick as houses, their branches forming a canopy so dense that even moonlight struggled to penetrate. Cashin shifted back to human form with that same impossible grace. Maren shifted too, the change coming easier this time, less painful. She stood on shaky human legs, catching her breath, her skin sheened with sweat despite the cold. "We'll rest here for a few hours," Cashin said, already pulling clothes from the pack he'd somehow managed to carry in wolf form. "There's a stream just east. You can drink, clean up if you want." She nodded, accepting the clothes he handed her. Their fingers brushed in the exchange, and she felt that spark again. Electric. Undeniable. He turned away, giving her privacy to dress. Ever the gentleman, even in the middle of nowhere. She pulled on the clothes quickly, then made her way toward the sound of running water. Found the stream easily, a thin ribbon of clear water cutting through moss-covered rocks. She knelt beside it, cupped water in her hands, drank deeply. It was cold enough to make her teeth ache, sweet and clean. She splashed some on her face, her neck, washing away the grime of travel. When she looked up, she saw her reflection in a still pool beside the stream. And froze. Her eyes. They weren't quite human anymore. Still her eyes, yes, the same shape, the same color. But there was something else in them now. A faint luminescence, like starlight trapped beneath the surface. Silver. Just a hint of it, but unmistakable. She touched her face, leaning closer to the water, trying to understand what she was seeing. It's the temple, Cashin's voice came from behind her. She hadn't heard him approach, but she didn't startle. The bond had warned her of his presence, a gentle pulse of awareness. We're getting closer to it. Your wolf can sense it. Your power is starting to wake up. She sat back on her heels, staring at her reflection. Is this permanent? I don't know. He moved to crouch beside her, his own reflection joining hers in the water. The texts weren't clear on a lot of things. But Marin, he waited until she looked at him instead of the water. Would it matter if it was? The question hung between them. Would it matter? If she became something other than human? If the silver flame changed her into something the world would fear even more than they already did? I don't know, she admitted quietly. He was silent for a moment then. Tell me about when it first happened. The flame. You said you were 16. She tensed, old shame rising like bile in her throat. I don't. You don't have to, he said quickly. But sometimes talking about the thing that scares us most helps take away its power. Marin stared down at her hands, watching water drip from her fingers. It had been 7 years. 7 years since the night her life had shattered. And she'd never told anyone the full truth of it. Never dared to. But here, in this ancient forest with the bond humming between them and her eyes glowing silver in the darkness, maybe here, she could finally let it out. There was a boy, she started, her voice barely above a whisper. Kale. He was the son of one of the pack elders. Popular. Strong. Everything a young wolf was supposed to be. She swallowed hard. I was nothing. The quiet girl who worked in the kitchens. But he noticed me anyway. Started talking to me. Smiling at me. And She laughed bitterly. I was stupid enough to think it meant something. Cashin said nothing, but she felt his attention on her, steady and unwavering. There was a bonfire. A celebration for the summer solstice. Everyone was there, drinking, dancing. Kale asked me to walk with him. Away from the crowd. Down to the lake. Her throat tightened. I thought he wanted to talk. To be alone with me because he actually cared. But when we got there, his friends were waiting. 5 of them. All laughing. She heard Cashin's sharp intake of breath, but didn't look at him. Couldn't. It was a game, she continued, the words coming faster now, like poison she needed to purge. A dare. See if any of them could get the weird kitchen girl to fall for them. They'd been taking bets on it. Kale won. And they all thought it was hilarious. She clenched her fists. They started saying things. Horrible things. About what I looked like. About what I was worth. About what they could do to me and no one would care because I was nobody. Marin. I tried to leave. Kale grabbed me. Said they weren't done yet. That I owed him for all the time he'd wasted pretending to like me. And then, her voice cracked. Then they all shifted. Surrounded me. Not attacking, just circling. Growling. Snapping their teeth. Terrifying me because they could. Because it was funny. The memory crashed over her with physical force. The fear. The humiliation. The absolute helplessness of being trapped by boys who thought her pain was entertainment. I tried to shift too, she whispered. To defend myself. But my wolf wouldn't come. She was too scared. Too broken. So I just stood there, crying, begging them to stop. And they laughed harder. What happened? Cashin's voice was carefully controlled, but she could hear the fury beneath it. I got angry. She looked up at him finally, meeting those silver eyes. Angrier than I'd ever been in my life. Angry at them. At myself. At the universe for making me so weak. And the rage just exploded. Silver fire erupted from my hands, my chest, everywhere. It didn't burn me, but it burned them. Two of the boys were badly hurt. Kale, she stopped, remembering his screams. Kale lost the use of his right arm. The fire scared him so badly it damaged the nerves beyond healing. Silence stretched between them. The elders came, she continued. Saw what I'd done. And I tried to explain, tried to tell them what had happened, but no one believed me. Or if they did, they didn't care. All they saw was a cursed girl who'd maimed the son of an elder. Kale and his friends said I'd attacked them unprovoked. That I was unstable. Dangerous. She laughed hollowly. And maybe they were right. Maybe I am. No, the word came out sharp. Final. Cashin reached out, caught her chin gently, forced her to look at him. No. You defended yourself against wolves who were tormenting you. Who wanted to hurt you. That's not being dangerous. That's being a survivor. I could have killed them. But you didn't. His thumb brushed along her jaw, his touch impossibly gentle. You were 16 years old, terrified and alone, and your power manifested to protect you. That's what it's supposed to do. That's what it's for. Tears burned in her eyes. The pack exiled me. Or tried to. But I had nowhere to go, so they let me stay if I worked in the kitchens. If I kept my head down and never caused trouble again. If I pretended I didn't exist. And you've been doing that for 7 years. Not a question. A statement laced with barely controlled rage. 7 years of hiding. Of believing you deserved to be punished for protecting yourself. What else was I supposed to do? Fight back. His voice dropped lower, more intense. Stand up. Claim your power instead of being ashamed of it. Easy for you to say, she shot back, pulling away from his touch. You're the Alpha King. No one questions you. No one tells you you're a monster for being strong. You're right. He sat back, and some of the fire left his eyes. I've had privilege you never did. Power I was born into. But Marin, he waited until she looked at him again. That doesn't change the fact that you've been lied to. Manipulated. Convinced you were the problem when the real problem was a pack that chose cruelty over justice. She wanted to argue. Wanted to hold on to the shame and self-hatred she'd carried for so long because at least those were familiar. Safe. But the bond wouldn't let her. It pulsed with his conviction, his absolute certainty that she deserved better. And slowly, painfully, something in her chest began to crack open. I'm scared, she whispered. Of what I might become. Of what the flame might turn me into. Then we'll be scared together. He offered her his hand again. But we'll also be brave. And we'll figure this out. Whatever you become at that temple, whatever power you unlock, you won't face it alone. She stared at his hand. Scarred and strong and steady. Then she took it. He pulled her to her feet, and they stood there by the stream, hands clasped, the bond singing between them. We should keep moving, he said quietly. We've still got a long way to go. She nodded, but before he could step away, she tightened her grip on his hand. Cashin? Yeah, thank you. For listening. For believing me. Something soft moved through his expression. Always. They made their way back to where he'd left the pack. But as they walked, Marin couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted between them. Some wall she'd built had crumbled, letting him in closer than she'd meant to allow. It should have terrified her. Instead, it felt almost like relief. They shifted back into wolf form and ran deeper into the night. But this time, when Cashin glanced back at her, she didn't just follow. She ran beside him. Dawn came slowly to the ancient forest. They'd stopped to rest as the first gray light began filtering through the canopy. Cashin had found them shelter, a hollow beneath the roots of a tree so massive it seemed to have been growing since the world was young. They'd shifted back to human form, eaten dried meat and hard bread from his pack, and now sat in comfortable silence as morning birds began their songs. Marin watched the light change, painting the world in shades of amber and gold. Her body ached pleasantly from the night's run. Her wolf dozed contentedly beneath her skin, satiated in a way she'd never felt before. Can I ask you something? She said quietly. Cashin looked up from where he'd been sharpening a knife with a whetstone. Of course. You said you've been watching me for 3 years. What did you see? When you looked at me, before you knew about the bond, what did you think? He set the knife aside, considering his answer carefully. I thought you were haunted, he finally said. I'd see you in the compound sometimes, always in the background, always trying to disappear. And I'd wonder what had happened to make someone so young look so defeated. He paused. I made inquiries. Learned about the incident when you were 16. Read the official reports, but they didn't sit right with me. Too convenient. Too clean. So I dug deeper. Found witnesses who'd been at that bonfire. Wolves who'd seen Kale and his friends leave with you. Who'd heard you screaming. Marin's breath caught. You investigated? I did. And when I realized what had actually happened, what they'd done to you and how the pack had responded, I wanted to burn the whole system down. His hands clenched. But I was young, newly crowned, still figuring out how to wield the power I'd inherited. The elders assured me you were being taken care of, that you'd been given a place to work and a chance to redeem yourself. I was naive enough to believe them. So you just watched? For 3 years. I made sure you were safe, he corrected. Made sure no one hurt you again. But I didn't intervene directly because I thought, he shook his head. I thought I was respecting your privacy. Giving you space to heal on your own terms. Now I realize I was just a coward. I should have done more. Should have faced you directly, offered you protection, gotten you out of that toxic situation. Why didn't you? He met her eyes. Because I was afraid. Of what? Of this. He gestured between them. My wolf had been drawn to you from the first moment I saw you. Not the mate bond that didn't snap into place until the ceremony, but something. An awareness. An interest that felt dangerous because I was trying so hard to be the alpha king everyone needed me to be. The one who didn't let personal feelings interfere with duty. So I kept my distance. Told myself I was doing the right thing. But really, I was just running from something I didn't understand. Marin absorbed this, turning it over in her mind. You said your wolf went wild at the ceremony. What was that like? When the bond snapped into place. A muscle worked in his jaw. Like dying and being reborn at the same time. Like every choice I'd ever made suddenly revealed itself as wrong. Like the universe grabbed me by the throat and said, "This is your mate, you absolute fool, and you're kissing someone else." Despite everything, she almost smiled. Sounds painful. It was. He leaned back against the tree roots. The worst part wasn't even the physical agony of fighting against the bond. It was the clarity. Suddenly I could feel what you were feeling through the connection. Your confusion. Your hurt. Your hope dying in real time as you watched me with Saris. And I couldn't do anything to stop it because I was trapped in my own stupidity. You could have come to me immediately. Right there in the hall. I should have. He looked away. I should have dropped everything and gone to you. Claimed you in front of the entire pack. But I hesitated. Second-guessed. Worried about appearances and politics and all the things that don't actually matter when you've just found your mate. By the time I made the choice to go after you, his voice roughened. You were already running for your life. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of missed chances heavy between them. Do you regret it? Marin asked softly. The bond. Being tied to me instead of someone like Saris. Someone who could actually help your political position. He turned to look at her, and the intensity in his silver eyes made her breath catch. I regret every moment I wasted not knowing you, he said quietly. Every day I watched you from a distance instead of crossing that distance. Every time I convinced myself duty mattered more than what my wolf was trying to tell me. But the bond itself? Being tied to you. He shook his head. That's the one thing I don't regret. Not for a second. Her throat tightened. Even if I can't control the flame? She whispered. Even if I become something dangerous? Then you'll be dangerous, he said simply. And I'll stand beside you anyway. The words settled into her chest, warm and solid and terrifying in their certainty. She looked away, unable to hold his gaze any longer. Her eyes caught on something glinting in the tree roots above them, symbols carved into the ancient wood. Spiral patterns and crescent moons and shapes she didn't recognize. What are those? She asked, grateful for the distraction. Cashin followed her gaze. Markers. Old ones. They're leading us to the temple. He stood, offering her his hand. We're closer than I thought. If we push hard today, we might reach it by tomorrow night. She took his hand, let him pull her to her feet. What happens when we get there? Honestly, I don't know. The texts were vague, but they mentioned trials. Tests of worthiness. The temple was built to help flame-bearers harness their power, but not just anyone could enter. You had to prove yourself first. And if I can't? If I'm not worthy? He squeezed her hand gently. Then we'll figure something else out. But Maren, he waited until she looked at him. I think you've already proven yourself. You've survived things that would have broken most wolves. You've carried shame and pain that weren't yours to carry. You've faced death and kept fighting. If that's not worthy, I don't know what is. She wanted to believe him. Gods, she wanted to. But 7 years of being told she was cursed, broken, wrong, those voices didn't silence themselves easily. We should go, she said instead of responding. He nodded, seeming to understand she needed space from the intensity of the conversation. They gathered their things, prepared to shift again. But before they did, Cashin caught her wrist gently. One more thing, he said. About that boy. Kale. The one who hurt you. Ice trickled down her spine. What about him? After I learned the truth about what happened, I made sure he understood there would be consequences if he ever came near you again. Or if he told his version of events to anyone else. His expression was cold. Hard. He's been working the northern borders for the past 2 years. Far from the central compound. Far from you. And he'll stay there. Maren stared at him. You exiled him. I protected you. He released her wrist. The way I should have done 7 years ago. Something fierce and warm unfurled in her chest. Not gratitude, exactly. Something deeper. Something that felt dangerously like trust. She shifted without another word, her silver-threaded wolf taking shape beneath the ancient trees. And when they ran, she didn't just follow anymore. She ran beside him as an equal. As a wolf who was beginning, just beginning. To believe she might be more than the broken thing they'd all said she was. As they disappeared deeper into the wilderness, the carved symbols in the trees grew more frequent. More elaborate. Guiding them toward a temple that held either her salvation or her doom. She'd find out soon enough. But for now, she ran. And that was enough. The forest changed as they traveled deeper into the mountains. The trees grew taller, older, their bark silvered with age and thick with moss that glowed faintly in the darkness. The air itself felt different here, charged with something ancient and watchful. Every breath Maren took tasted of pine and stone and magic so old it had soaked into the very earth. They'd been running for most of the second day when Cashin finally slowed. They stood at the edge of a ravine, a deep gash in the mountain that dropped away into shadow. On the other side, barely visible through the mist, stood something that made Maren's wolf whine low in her throat. Ruins. Massive stone pillars rising from the mountainside like the bones of some ancient giant. Arches that had once supported buildings now stood alone, framing nothing but sky and fog. And at the center of it all, partially obscured by distance and weather, a structure that had somehow survived when everything around it had crumbled. The temple. Even from here, Maren could feel it. A pull deep in her chest, insistent and undeniable. Her wolf paced restlessly beneath her skin, torn between the urge to run toward it and the instinct to flee from something so powerful. Cashin shifted back to human form beside her. She followed suit, the change rippling through her with increasing ease each time. There, he said quietly, pointing across the ravine. That's where we're headed. Maren wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the exertion of the run. How do we get across? There's a bridge. Or what's left of one. About a mile east. He glanced at her, concern flickering in his silver eyes. You feel it, don't you? The temple. She nodded, not trusting her voice. It's calling to you, he said. To your bloodline. To the power you carry. It feels like she struggled for words. Like it's alive. Like it's been waiting. Maybe it has been. He moved closer, and she felt the warmth of him at her back, solid and grounding. The text said the temple was built by the first flamebearers, that they poured their power into the very stones, made it a sanctuary, a place of learning and transformation. What happened to them? Marin asked. The first flamebearers. If they were so powerful, why did they disappear? Cashin was silent for a long moment. The texts weren't clear, but there were hints, suggestions that they were hunted. That other wolves without the flame, grew jealous. Afraid. There was a war. A purge. And when it was over, the flamebearers were almost extinct. The few who survived went into hiding. Let their bloodlines scatter and dilute. Became myths instead of threats. Marin's chest tightened. So I'm what? A remnant of something that was supposed to be wiped out. You're proof that some things can't be destroyed, he corrected gently. No matter how hard people try. She turned to face him, searching his expression. You really believe that? That I'm not just some genetic accident? Some mistake. I believe you're exactly what you were always meant to be. His hand came up, hesitating for just a moment before he brushed a strand of hair back from her face. The question is, do you believe it? Before she could answer, a sound echoed across the ravine. Low. Resonant. Like a bell being struck deep underground. They both froze. The sound came again, and this time Marin felt it in her bones. In her blood. Her chest began to warm, that familiar heat building beneath her sternum. The temple, Cashin breathed. It knows you're here. Another pulse of sound, and the warmth in Marin's chest flared into something brighter. Not painful, but insistent. She gasped, pressing a hand over her heart. What's happening? I think Cashin moved to steady her. I think it's recognizing you. Testing you. The warmth spread, flowing down her arms, into her hands. She held them up and watched in stunned silence as silver light began to glow beneath her skin. Not flame yet. Just light. Soft and steady, like moonlight contained in flesh. Cashin. It's okay, he said quickly, though she could hear the tension in his voice. You're okay. Just breathe. She tried. Drew an air that tasted of ozone and ancient magic. The light in her hands pulsed in rhythm with the sound coming from the temple, as if they were communicating in some language older than words. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, it stopped. The warmth faded. The light dimmed and disappeared. The temple across the ravine fell silent. Marin stood trembling, her heart racing, staring at her now normal hands. What was that? She whispered. A greeting, Cashin said, wonder threading through his voice. The temple recognizes your bloodline. It's accepting you. She looked up at him. How do you know? Because if it hadn't, we'd both be ash right now. He smiled slightly, though his eyes remained serious. The text mentioned defensive wards. Protections against those who would desecrate the sacred space. But you triggered a different response. A welcoming. Marin's legs felt weak. She sat down hard on a nearby rock, trying to process what had just happened. I felt it, she said quietly. The temple. It felt like she struggled for the right words. Like coming home. Like some part of me has been there before, even though I know I haven't. Your ancestors, Cashin said, crouching beside her. The flame bearers who built that place. Their memories, their knowledge, it's in your blood. In your bones. The temple is waking that up. She pressed her hands to her face, overwhelmed. I don't know if I'm ready for this. You don't have to be ready. His hand found her shoulder, warm and steady. You just have to be willing. And Marin, he waited until she looked at him. You can still turn back. We can leave. Find another way to help you control the flame. I won't force you into this. She wanted to take him up on that offer. Wanted to run back into the forest and pretend she'd never felt the temple calling to her blood. But she couldn't. Because beneath the fear, beneath the doubt, something else had awakened. Something that had been sleeping for 7 years, buried under shame and self-hatred. Curiosity. She wanted to know. Wanted to understand what she was. What she could become. No, she said, lowering her hands. We keep going. I need to see this through. Pride flickered across his features. Then let's find that bridge. The bridge was ancient and terrifying. Stone pylons jutted from either side of the ravine, connected by weathered planks that looked like they might disintegrate under the weight of a strong wind. Rope handrails, frayed and thin, were the only thing preventing a fall into the churning mist far below. "That's been here for centuries," Marin said flatly, staring at the structure. "And we're supposed to cross it." "The text said the path to the temple tests resolve," Cashin replied, though he didn't sound particularly confident. "Those who fear will turn back. That's not a test of resolve. That's suicide with extra steps." Despite the tension, he smiled. "I'll go first. Test the planks. If they hold me, they'll hold you. And if they don't hold you?" His smile faded. "Then you turn around and get as far from here as possible." "Cashin. I mean it." His voice turned serious. "If something happens to me, you run. Don't try to save me. Don't come after me. Just survive." Anger flared hot in her chest. "You really think I'd just leave you? I think you'd do what's necessary to live." He stepped closer, his hand coming up to cup her cheek. "Because you're a survivor, Marin. It's what you do best." She wanted to argue. Wanted to tell him that she wasn't the same girl who'd spent 7 years with her head down, accepting whatever scraps the world threw her way. But he was already moving toward the bridge. He tested the first plank with his foot, pressing down slowly. The wood groaned but held. He took another step. Then another. The bridge swayed slightly, rope handrails singing in the wind, but he kept going with careful, measured movements. Marin watched, her heart in her throat, unable to look away. He made it halfway across before one of the planks cracked. Not broke, not completely. But the sound of splintering wood echoed across the ravine like a gunshot. Cashin froze, slowly redistributing his weight to the ropes. "Keep going," Marin called, her voice shakier than she wanted. "You're almost there." He glanced back at her, and even from this distance, she could see the concern in his eyes. Not for himself. For her. Always for her. He made it the rest of the way across, stepping onto solid ground on the far side. Turned and beckoned to her. Marin took a breath and started across. The bridge felt even less stable with her weight added to the damage Cashin had already caused. Every step sent tremors through the structure. Halfway across, right where the plank had cracked under Cashin, she felt it give way completely. Her foot plunged through. She fell forward, catching herself on the rope handrails. They burned against her palms, rough and frayed, but they held. Her leg dangled through the broken plank, suspended over nothing but mist and a drop that would kill her instantly. "Don't move." Cashin's voice cracked like a whip across the distance. She didn't move. Could barely breathe. The bridge swayed beneath her, groaning, and she heard more wood beginning to splinter. "Marin, listen to me." His voice was calmer now, controlled. "You need to pull yourself up. Use the ropes." Slowly. She tried. Pulled with arms that shook from adrenaline and fear. But the ropes gave slightly under her weight, and more planks cracked beneath her. The bridge was going to collapse. She could feel it. The whole structure surrendering to time and weight and gravity. "Let go," she called to Cashin. "Get back from the edge. When this falls, I'm not leaving you." "Cashin, pull yourself up. Now." Not a request. A command, delivered with all the authority of an alpha king. And her body obeyed before her mind could protest. She hauled herself up through the broken plank, ignoring the pain as would scraped skin, as rope burned her palms raw. Got her feet back under her on the remaining planks. Didn't stop. Didn't think. Just moved. The bridge disintegrated behind her with each step. Planks falling away into the abyss. Rope snapping with sounds like screams. The whole structure coming apart as if her presence had been the final insult it could bear. She was 3 steps from solid ground when the last support gave way. The world tilted violently. And then Cashin's hand locked around her wrist. He yanked her forward with strength that shouldn't have been possible, pulling her clear of the collapsing bridge and onto the rocky outcropping. They fell together in a tangle of limbs, rolling away from the edge as the last pieces of the bridge disappeared into the ravine below. Silence. Just the sound of their ragged breathing and the distant echo of stone hitting stone far below. Marin lay on her back, staring up at the gray sky, her heart slamming against her ribs so hard she thought they might crack. "Are you hurt?" Cashin loomed over her, his hands already running over her arms, her legs, checking for injuries. "I'm fine," she managed. I'm okay." He sat back, relief washing over his features. Then, inexplicably, he started to laugh. "What?" she demanded, pushing herself up on her elbows. "What's funny?" "The test of resolve," he said between gasps of laughter. The text failed to mention it was also a test of not dying. Despite everything, despite the terror still coursing through her veins, she felt laughter bubble up in her own chest. Hysterical, maybe. Born of fear and relief and the sheer absurdity of having almost plummeted to her death on a bridge that should have collapsed centuries ago. They laughed until tears streamed down their faces, until their sides ached, until the tension finally broke and they could breathe again. When the laughter finally subsided, Marin became aware of how close they were. How Cashin's hand still rested on her arm. How his silver eyes had darkened as they traced her face. She started. He kissed her. Sudden and fierce and desperate, like he'd been holding himself back for too long and the fear of losing her had shattered his control. His hand came up to cup the back of her head, fingers threading through her hair, and she made a sound that was half gasp, half surrender. The bond between them exploded into light. Not the gentle pulse she'd felt before. This was wildfire. This was lightning striking the same place twice. Every nerve ending in her body lit up, singing with recognition and want and rightness. She kissed him back just as desperately, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. He tasted like the forest and the storm and something uniquely him, something that made her wolf howl with joy. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he pressed his forehead to hers. "I'm sorry," he said roughly. "I shouldn't have." "Don't." She cut him off, her hand coming up to press against his chest, feeling his heart race beneath her palm. "Don't apologize for that. I swore I wouldn't push you. That I'd give you time. Cashin." She waited until he looked at her. "I kissed you back. That was my choice. And I'd make it again." Something in his expression cracked open. Vulnerability she'd never seen from him before. "I thought I'd lost you," he admitted quietly. "When that bridge gave way. When you fell. I thought," his jaw clenched. "I can't lose you. Not now. Not when I've just found you." She should have been scared by the intensity of his words. Should have pulled back, put distance between them, protected her already battered heart. But the bond wouldn't let her. And more than that, she didn't want to. "You didn't lose me," she said softly. "I'm right here." He kissed her again. Gentler this time. A promise instead of desperation. When they finally pulled apart, the temple loomed ahead of them, impossibly massive now that they were close. The structure was carved directly into the mountainside, as if the builders had simply carved away everything that wasn't temple and left behind something both beautiful and terrifying. Pillars thick as ancient trees flanked an entrance that gaped like an open mouth. Symbols covered every surface, the same spirals and crescents they'd been following, but more elaborate here. More alive. And above the entrance, carved in stone so old it had weathered to smoothness, words in a language Marin didn't recognize, but somehow understood. "Those who carry the flame shall find truth. Those who fear it shall find ash." Asterisk. "Well," Cashin said, pulling her to her feet. "That's ominous." Despite everything, she smiled. "You don't have to come in with me. It's my bloodline. My trial. Marin." He laced his fingers through hers. "Where you go, I go. Even into fire." The words settled into her chest, warm and solid. Together, they approached the temple entrance. As they crossed the threshold, the air changed. Became thicker. Charged with power that made the hair on Marin's arms stand up. The silver light returned to her hands, brighter now, illuminating the darkness ahead. The temple interior opened up before them, a vast space carved from living rock. The ceiling stretched up so high it disappeared into shadow. And everywhere, covering the walls, the floor, even the ceiling, were carvings. Wolves. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Depicted in every stage of transformation. Running, fighting, dancing. And among them, figures with silver light pouring from their hands, their eyes, their very souls. The flame bearers. Marin's ancestors. Gods, Cashin breathed beside her. This is. A sound cut through the darkness. Not the bell tone from before. This was different. Multiple voices, speaking in unison, echoing from everywhere and nowhere at once. Welcome, daughter of flame. Welcome home. Asterisk. The silver light in Marin's hands blazed brighter, responding to the voices, to the temple itself. And deep within the mountain, something ancient and powerful stirred from its long sleep. The trial was about to begin. The voices led them deeper. Not with words, but with light. Silver flames ignited along the walls, forming a path through the temple's labyrinthine corridors. Marin followed them without question, her own light pulsing in rhythm with the flames, as if they were all part of the same heartbeat. Cashin stayed close, his hand never leaving hers. They descended. Down stone stairs worn smooth by centuries of feet. Past chambers filled with more carvings, more stories etched in stone. Past altars where offerings had once been made. Past pools of water so still they looked like mirrors reflecting nothing but darkness. Finally, the path opened into a chamber so vast it stole Marin's breath. Circular. Domed. With a ceiling that glittered like a night sky full of stars. Except these stars were made of crystal embedded in the rock, and they glowed with soft silver light. In the center of the chamber stood a raised platform, and on that platform, a pool of water that reflected the crystal stars above. Around the edges of the chamber, carved into alcoves in the walls, stood 7 stone figures. Wolves in human form, frozen mid-transformation. Silver flames carved so intricately they seemed to move in the flickering light. Each figure had one hand extended toward the pool, as if offering something. Or perhaps waiting to receive. The voices spoke again, resonating through the chamber. 7 trials for 7 gifts. 7 truths for 7 lies. The daughter of flame must prove her worth, or the flame will consume her as it has consumed all who came unworthy. Asterisk. Cashin's hand tightened on hers. Marin. I know. She looked at the pool, at the 7 figures watching with stone eyes. This is it. The test. What do you have to do? I don't. The water in the pool began to glow. Not silver like everything else. Gold. Bright and warm and inviting. Enter. Asterisk, the voices commanded. Asterisk, let the water show you truth. Let the flame judge your heart. Asterisk. Marin took a step toward the pool. Cashin moved with her, but the moment his foot touched the raised platform, the air around them shimmered. An invisible barrier. He tried to push through it, but it wouldn't yield. His eyes widened. Marin. It's okay, she said, though her voice shook. This part one have to do alone. No, he pressed against the barrier, frustrated. I'm supposed to protect you. You have protected me. She placed her free hand against the barrier, and their palms met with only the shimmer of magic between them. You got me here. You believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. But this, she glanced at the pool. This is mine to face. Fear flickered across his features. What if something goes wrong? What if you need help? Then I'll find my way back to you. She tried to smile, but it came out shaky. Trust me? He stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly, reluctantly, he nodded. With my life. She turned away before she could change her mind. Approached the pool with steps that felt both too fast and too slow. The golden water called to her, warm and welcoming, promising answers to questions she'd carried her entire life. She looked back once. Saw Cashin pressed against the barrier, silver eyes locked on her, every line of his body tense with the need to follow. Then she stepped into the pool. The water was warm. It rose to her ankles, her knees, her waist as she waded toward the center. The golden light intensified, wrapping around her like liquid silk. She could feel it seeping through her clothes, her skin, reaching toward something deep inside her. When the water reached her chest, the voices spoke again. What is your truth, daughter of flame? Who are you when all the lies are stripped away? Asterisk. The world dissolved. She was 16 again, standing by the lake with Kale and his friends circling her, their laughter sharp as knives, their words carving pieces from her soul. Nobody. Nothing. Monster. Asterisk. The fear crashed over her, just as fresh as it had been 7 years ago. The helplessness. The shame. But then. No asterisk. The word came from somewhere deep inside her. A voice she didn't recognize. Or maybe she did. Maybe it was the voice she'd buried beneath years of self-hatred and doubt. This is not my truth. Asterisk. The scene shifted. She stood in the pack compound, scrubbing floors while wolves walked past her without seeing. Invisible. Forgotten. Convinced she deserved to be nothing because that's what they'd told her she was. No asterisk. Another shift. The ceremony. Watching Cashin kiss Saris. Feeling the bond fracture. Believing, just for a moment, that even fate had rejected her. No asterisk. The scenes came faster now. Memory after memory of every time she'd made herself small. Every time she'd swallowed her voice. Every time she'd let them convince her that the flame was a curse instead of a gift. And with each memory, that voice inside her grew stronger. This is not who I am. Asterisk. This is not my truth. Asterisk. The golden water around her began to change. Warming. Brightening. And beneath her sternum, that familiar heat built. The silver flame. But this time, she didn't fight it. Didn't try to push it down or control it or make it smaller. She let it rise. Silver light exploded from her chest, her hands, her skin. It poured into the water, mixing with the gold, creating something new. Something that blazed white-hot and beautiful. The voices spoke, and this time they sounded almost proud. Truth, you are not broken. You are not cursed. You are flame made flesh. You are the daughter of those who came before. You are worthy. Asterisk. The light grew brighter. Brighter. Until Marin couldn't see anything but white fire. Until she couldn't tell where she ended and the flame began. And then, silence. She opened her eyes. She stood in the pool still, but the water had turned crystal clear. The chamber around her blazed with silver light, not from the crystals above, but from her. From the flame that now burned steady and calm beneath her skin, no longer wild or uncontrolled. She looked down at her hands and saw them glowing softly, silver veins of light visible beneath her skin like a roadmap to power she was only beginning to understand. The 7 stone figures around the chamber moved. Not much. Just their heads, turning to look at her. And as they did, their mouths opened, and they spoke in unison with the voices that had guided her here. Welcome, Flamebearer. The first trial is complete. 6 more await. But rest now. Learn. Grow. The temple will teach you what you need to know. Asterisk. The barrier between Marin and Cashin dissolved. He was moving before it fully disappeared, splashing into the pool, pulling her into his arms so fiercely she gasped. You're glowing, he said against her hair. You're actually glowing. She looked up at him and saw the wonder in his eyes. The pride. The absolute lack of fear even though she was currently radiating enough power to level a building. I did it, she whispered. I passed the first trial. You did more than pass. He pulled back just enough to look at her properly, his hands framing her face. You were magnificent. The bond between them sang, stronger than ever, fed by the power she'd just claimed. 6 more, she said, suddenly exhausted. 6 more trials. And we'll face them, he assured her. Together. But first, he glanced around the chamber. First, you rest. The temple said as much. As if in response to his words, a doorway appeared in the wall. An opening that hadn't been there before, leading to a chamber beyond. The voices whispered one last time, fading like echoes. Sleep, daughter of flame. Tomorrow, you learn what it truly means to burn. Asterisk. The chamber beyond the doorway was smaller than the trial room, but no less breathtaking. Soft light emanated from more of those crystal stars embedded in the ceiling, casting everything in a gentle silver glow. In the center of the space sat a natural hot spring, steam rising from water so clear Marin could see smooth stones lining the bottom. Along one wall, sleeping furs had been laid out, ancient but clean, preserved by whatever magic kept this place alive. And everywhere, carved into every surface, more symbols. More stories. More history she was only beginning to understand. The temple provides, Cashin said quietly, wonder threading through his voice. He set down the pack he'd been carrying since they left the cave. Food. Water. Shelter. Like it's been waiting for you. Marin moved to the edge of the hot spring, knelt, and dipped her fingers in the water. Warmth spread up her arm immediately, soothing aches she hadn't realized she was carrying. The silver glow beneath her skin pulsed softly, responding to the water's magic. Everything here feels alive, she whispered. Connected. Like the temple is one giant organism and we're standing inside it. Maybe we are. Cashin crouched beside her. The flamebearers who built this place, they poured their power into it. Their essence. Maybe part of them is still here, watching over those who come after. The thought should have been unsettling. Instead, it felt comforting. Like she wasn't alone. Like her ancestors were standing guard, protecting her even across the span of centuries. She looked down at her hands again, at the silver light still visible beneath her skin. It had dimmed since the trial, but hadn't disappeared entirely. She could feel it humming inside her, warm and steady. No longer the wild, uncontrollable thing that had exploded from her in terror. This was different. Contained. Purposeful. Hers. I can control it now, she said, flexing her fingers and watching the light pulse brighter in response. Not completely, but enough. I can feel it. Understand it. It's not fighting me anymore. Because you stopped fighting it, Cashin observed. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and traced one of the glowing lines on her wrist. His touch was gentle, reverent. You accepted what you are. That's what the trial was testing. Not your power. Your belief in yourself. She watched his finger follow the silver veins, leaving warmth in its wake. The voices said there are 6 more trials. What do you think they'll be? I don't know. But whatever they are, he looked up at her, his silver eyes intense. You'll face them. And you'll win. Because that's what you do. You survive. You overcome. The certainty in his voice made her chest tight. You have a lot of faith in someone you barely know. I know you. His hand moved from her wrist to her cheek, cupping it gently. I've watched you for 3 years, remember? I've seen your strength even when you couldn't see it yourself. I've seen you endure things that would have destroyed lesser wolves. And tonight, his thumb brushed along her cheekbone. Tonight, I watched you face your deepest fears and come out burning. She leaned into his touch despite herself, closing her eyes. I'm scared, Cashin. Of what comes next. Of what these trials might ask of me. Then be scared, he said simply. Fear doesn't make you weak. It makes you smart. But don't let it stop you. She opened her eyes to find him watching her with an expression that made her breath catch. Want. Need. But also something deeper. Something that looked almost like. A sound shattered the moment. Distant. Muffled by stone and distance, but unmistakable. Howls. Cashin was on his feet instantly, his body going taut with predatory readiness. We've been found. Marin stood too, her heart kicking into a faster rhythm. How? We covered our tracks. We. The bridge. Realization flickered across his features. When it collapsed, the sound would have echoed for miles. If there were patrols in the area. Another howl. Closer this time. Multiple voices joining in a chorus that spoke of hunting. Of violence. The pack, Marin whispered. They sent wolves after us. Not just the pack. Cashin moved to the doorway, peering out into the trial chamber. His expression darkened. That's a hunting formation. Elite trackers. The kind the elders send when they want someone brought back dead, not alive. Ice trickled down Marin's spine. They're coming here. To the temple. They'll have to get past the wards first. The defensive magic, he stopped. Swore under his breath. You triggered the welcoming wards when you entered. Proved you had flame-bearer blood. But that means the aggressive wards, The ones that would burn intruders to ash, they're dormant now, waiting for you to complete all 7 trials before they activate again. So we're defenseless. Not defenseless. He turned to her, and the Alpha King was back in his eyes. Hard. Calculating. But vulnerable. And they know it. They wouldn't have come this far unless they were certain they could breach the temple. The howls came again. So close now that Marin could hear individual voices. At least 6 wolves. Maybe more. Her mind raced. They were trapped. No bridge to escape across. No way out except through wolves who wanted her dead. And Cashin. You have to leave, she said suddenly. Shift. Run. You can make it past them. You're faster, stronger. No, flat. Absolute. Cashin. I said no. He moved toward her, caught her shoulders. I'm not leaving you. Not now. Not ever. They'll kill you for protecting me. Then they'll kill me. His grip tightened. But I'm not walking away from you, Marin. The bond won't let me. My wolf won't let me. And even if they would, his voice dropped lower. I wouldn't let me. So stop asking. She stared at him, seeing the absolute conviction in his face. The stubborn, foolish bravery that was going to get him killed. There has to be another way, she whispered. There is. He released her shoulders, started moving toward the entrance to the trial chamber. We fight. Against 6 elite warriors? We'll make them remember why challenging an Alpha King is a mistake. He glanced back at her. And they'll learn what happens when you threaten a flame bearer in her own temple. The confidence in his voice should have been comforting. Instead, it terrified her. Because she could feel his determination through the bond. Could feel his willingness to die protecting her. And she couldn't let that happen. The howls erupted right outside the temple entrance. They'd arrived. Cashin shifted without warning, his massive black wolf taking shape in the space between one breath and the next. He positioned himself between Marin and the doorway, his hackles raised, lips pulled back from teeth that could tear through flesh and bone. Marin's wolf surged inside her, demanding to be released. Demanding to fight beside him. But something held her back. An instinct. A whisper from the temple itself, speaking through the silver light in her veins. Wait. Watch. Learn. Asterisk. 6 wolves entered the trial chamber. No, 7. All massive. All battle-scarred. Their eyes glowed in the silver light of the temple, reflecting yellow and gold and cold calculation. They fanned out in a practiced formation, cutting off any escape routes, moving with the synchronized precision of warriors who'd hunted together for years. The largest wolf, gray with a white slash across his muzzle, stepped forward. His lips pulled back in what might have been a smile if wolves could smile. It looked wrong. Cruel. Then he shifted. The man who emerged was older than Cashin by at least a decade. Heavily muscled. Covered in scars that told stories of countless battles. When he spoke, his voice echoed off the stone walls. Alpha King. He inclined his head in a mockery of respect. You've led us on quite the chase. Cashin shifted back too, standing naked and unashamed before the warriors. Torin. I should have known the elders would send their best hunting dog. Torin's smile widened, showing too many teeth. The elders send their regards. They're very disappointed that you abandoned your duties to chase after a cursed wolf. They're concerned about your judgment. My judgment is fine. It's their authority I'm questioning. Dangerous words. Torin's eyes flicked to Marin, still standing in the doorway to the resting chamber. The girl has bewitched you. Twisted your mind with whatever dark magic her bloodline carries. It's the only explanation for why you'd throw away everything, your position, your reputation, your alliances, for her. I threw away nothing, Cashin said coldly. I chose my mate over political conveniences. That's not bewitchment. That's nature. Nature. Torin laughed, harsh and mocking. Nature doesn't create abominations like her. Nature doesn't gift wolves with silver fire that burns their own kind. She's a mistake. A genetic aberration that should have been culled years ago. The silver light beneath Marin's skin flared hot. Careful, Torin. Cashin's voice dropped into something dangerous. You're in her temple. Speaking against flamebearers in a place built by flamebearers. That's not just disrespectful. It's suicidal. This temple is dead. Torin gestured at the chamber around them. A relic. The flame-bearers are extinct and good riddance. The world is better without them. Apparently not extinct enough. Another voice. One of the other wolves had shifted, a woman with short-cropped hair and cold eyes. Since one stands before us now, glowing like a beacon of everything our ancestors fought to destroy. Marin's hands clenched into fists. The silver light pulsed brighter, responding to her anger. Your ancestors were jealous, she heard herself say. Her voice echoed strangely in the chamber, as if the temple itself was amplifying it. They feared what they couldn't understand, couldn't control. So they destroyed it, murdered it. And then they rewrote history to make themselves the heroes. Torin's expression darkened. Brave words from a girl who's been running for her life. I'm done running. She stepped out of the doorway into the trial chamber proper. The 7 stone figures around the pool seemed to turn toward her, their carved faces expectant. This is my temple. My birthright. And you, she met Torin's eyes. You're trespassing. He laughed. You think these old stones will protect you? You haven't completed the trials. The defensive wards are dormant. You're defenseless. Am I? She lifted her hands, and silver flame ignited in her palms. Not wild this time. Controlled. Purposeful. Beautiful and terrible. Why don't you test that theory? The other wolves shifted uneasily. Even Torin's confidence faltered for just a moment. But only a moment. Kill them, he ordered. Both of them. Make it quick. The wolves attacked. Cashin met the first 3 head-on, shifting mid-leap, black fur and silver eyes and lethal grace. He moved like violence incarnate, all coiled power and brutal efficiency. Teeth found throats. Claws opened flesh. He was outnumbered but undaunted, fighting with the skill of a wolf who'd been training for war since he could walk. The remaining 4 came for Marin. She didn't shift. Didn't run. The silver flame in her hands blazed brighter, and she thrust them forward. Fire exploded from her palms like a tidal wave of light. It crashed into the first wolf, sending him flying backward with a yelp of pain and surprise. Didn't kill him, she pulled back at the last moment, some part of her still unwilling to take a life, but burned him badly enough that he stayed down. The second wolf tried to circle behind her. She spun, flame following her movement, creating a barrier of silver fire. The wolf skidded to a halt, eyes wide, unable to cross through the flames. The third and fourth attacked together from opposite sides. This time, instinct took over. The flame exploded outward in all directions, a sphere of silver light that expanded from her body like a shockwave. Both wolves were caught in it, sent tumbling across the stone floor with singed fur and panicked yelps. Marin stood at the center of the sphere, breathing hard, the flames still dancing around her like a living thing. Protecting her. Responding to her will. She wasn't defenseless. She'd never been defenseless. She'd just been afraid to claim what she was. Torin shifted back to human form, staring at her with something that might have been fear. Might have been rage. Probably both. Impossible, he breathed. You haven't completed the trials. You shouldn't be able to. I passed the first trial, Marin said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. I accepted what I am. Claimed my truth. That was enough to begin unlocking the power. And every moment I spend in this temple, I grow stronger. Behind her, Cashin had subdued 2 of his attackers and was locked in combat with the third. Blood stained his black fur, some his, some theirs, but he fought on with relentless determination. Torin's eyes flicked between Marin and Cashin, calculating odds, assessing threats. The elders underestimated you, he said slowly. Both of you. That's unfortunate. For you, Marin agreed. He smiled then. Sharp. Cold. Perhaps. But they also gave me contingencies. In case the girl proved difficult to handle. Something in his tone made Marin's stomach drop. What did you do? Nothing yet. Torin started backing toward the entrance, his warriors retreating with him. Even the injured ones dragged themselves to their feet, limping toward escape. But there's another hunting party. One you don't know about. They're not coming here. Ice flooded Marin's veins. Where? Your old territory. The compound. Specifically. His smile widened. The kitchens. Where a certain young woman named Kira works. Sweet girl. Innocent. No idea that her best friend is a cursed flamebearer who brings death wherever she goes. No, the word came out choked. Kira has nothing to do with this. She has everything to do with this. Torin reached the entrance. The Elder's message is simple. Return to the compound. Submit to judgment. Face execution like the abomination you are. Or your friend dies. You have until sunrise. You wouldn't. We would. We have. The order's already been given. The only question is whether you care enough about a kitchen worker's life to trade your own for it. Rage exploded through Marin. White-hot and consuming. The silver flame around her blazed so bright the entire chamber lit up like noon. If you touch her, then come back and stop us. Torin shifted, his gray wolf taking shape. Sunrise, girl. Make your choice. The hunting party fled. Cashin started to pursue, but Marin's voice stopped him. Let them go. He shifted back, turning to her with confusion and fury warring in his expression. They threatened you. They attacked us. We can't just. They threatened Kira. Her voice cracked on the name. My friend. The only person in that whole compound who was kind to me. Who treated me like I mattered. And now she's going to die because of me. It's a trap. Cashin moved toward her, blood dripping from wounds on his shoulder and side. They're trying to lure you back to the compound where they can overwhelm you. Where the temple's power can't protect you. I know. She let the flames die, pulled them back inside her until only the faint glow remained beneath her skin. But I can't let her die, Cashin. I can't. If you go back, they'll kill you. If I stay here, they'll kill her. Then I'll go. He grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. I'll take my fastest warriors. We'll reach the compound, get your friend out. By sunrise? It's a 3-day journey. We barely made it here ourselves. She shook her head. There's not enough time. There has to be another way. There isn't. She pulled away from him, moved toward the doorway where Torin had stood moments before. Stared out into the darkness beyond the temple. They knew exactly what they were doing. Knew the one thing that would make me leave before completing the trials. Cashin was silent for a long moment. Then, what was the timeline Torin gave you? Sunrise. He calculated quickly. 6 hours. Maybe 7. If we shift now. Run flat out. Push ourselves to the absolute limit. We might make it. She turned to look at him. But I'd have to leave the temple. Leave the trials unfinished. The trials can wait. Can they? She gestured at the chamber around them. The temple woke up for me, Cashin. It called to me. Started teaching me. What if leaving now, before I'm ready, before I've completed what I came here to do, what if that closes the door permanently? What if I never get another chance to learn what I am? To claim the full power of my bloodline? Then you don't. His voice was fierce. You save your friend instead. You stay the person who values a single life over personal power. That's what makes you better than them, Marin. Better than the elders who'd sacrifice anyone to maintain control. She wanted to argue. Wanted to say that her power mattered. That becoming strong enough to fight back mattered. That she needed to complete the trials. But Kira's face flashed through her mind. Kira, who'd snuck her extra food when the kitchen master wasn't looking. Who'd sat with her during breaks and told stupid jokes to make her smile. Who'd treated her like a friend when everyone else treated her like a ghost. Kira, who was going to die because Marin had dared to want something more than the life they'd forced on her. We go, she said quietly. Now. We run as fast as we can and we pray we're fast enough. Relief and determination flashed across Cashin's features. We'll make it. I swear to you, we'll make it. He shifted immediately, his black wolf ready to run. Marin cast one last look around the trial chamber. At the pool where she'd faced her first trial. At the 7 stone figures watching with carved eyes. At the doorway to the resting chamber where she'd almost allowed herself to believe she could have peace. The temple seemed to hum around her. Not with anger at her leaving, but with something that felt almost like understanding. Go, asterisk, it seemed to whisper. Asterisk, save her. The trials will wait. We will wait. You are Flamebearer. You are ours. We will always be here when you're ready to return. Asterisk. She shifted, her silver-threaded wolf taking shape. And together, she and Cashin ran. Back through the temple. Past the collapsed bridge. Into the forest that stretched endlessly between them and a compound full of wolves who wanted her dead. They had 6 hours. 6 hours to cover 3 days' worth of ground. 6 hours to save a friend or watch her die because Marin had dared to believe she could be something more than broken. They ran like their lives depended on it. Because someone's life did. And this time, Marin refused to fail. They ran through the darkness like demons fleeing hell. No rest. No pause. Just the relentless rhythm of paws against earth, muscles burning, lungs screaming for air they couldn't spare. The forest blurred around them, trees and shadows, and the endless stretch of wilderness that separated them from the compound. From Kira. From a deadline that grew closer with every passing second. Cashin set a punishing pace. His black wolf was built for this. For endurance and speed and the kind of brutal determination that turned impossible into merely difficult. But even he had limits. She could see it in the way his stride began to falter after the 3rd hour. The way his breathing grew more labored. Her own body was past exhaustion. Every muscle trembled with the effort of maintaining the speed. Her wounds from days ago had reopened, leaving traces of blood in her wake. The silver light beneath her skin pulsed weakly, as if even her power was depleted by the exertion. But they couldn't stop. Wouldn't stop. Not until they reached the compound or collapsed trying. Dawn was still hours away when Cashin finally slowed. Not by choice, his body simply gave out. He stumbled, caught himself, stumbled again. Shifted back to human form, and went down on one knee, chest heaving, blood and sweat dripping from his skin. Marin shifted too, staggering to his side. We have to keep moving. He gasped for air. Need 30 seconds. Can't maintain that pace. She wanted to argue. Wanted to drag him back to his feet and force him to keep running. But her own legs were shaking so badly she could barely stand. 30 seconds. They could spare 30 seconds. She sank down beside him, her body grateful for even this brief respite. Around them, the forest was beginning to show the first hints of pre-dawn gray. Not sunrise yet, but close. Too close. How far, she managed between ragged breaths. 2 hours. Cashin's voice was rough, strained. Maybe less if we can maintain speed. But Marin, he looked at her, and even through the exhaustion, she saw the concern in his eyes. You're hurt. Bleeding. You can't keep this up. I have to. You'll kill yourself. Then I'll die running. She forced herself to her feet, swaying slightly. Kira doesn't have the luxury of us being tired. She doesn't get to wait for us to recover. So we don't get to stop. He stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly, painfully, he stood too. You're the most stubborn wolf I've ever met, he said. But there was admiration in his voice. Pride. You're not exactly known for backing down either. Despite everything, despite the pain and the fear and the impossible odds, he smiled. We're going to be a nightmare together, aren't we? Probably. She smiled back, small and tired but real. If we survive this. When we survive this, he corrected. He reached out, caught her hand, laced his fingers through hers. I need you to promise me something. Cashin. Promise me. His grip tightened. When we get there, and we will get there, you let me go in first. Let me assess the situation. Figure out where they're holding Kira, how many guards, what kind of trap they've set. They'll kill you. They'll try. His voice turned hard. Cold. But I'm the Alpha King. Even wolves loyal to the elders will hesitate before attacking me directly. That hesitation might be all we need. But if you go charging in, flames blazing, they won't hesitate. They'll strike immediately. She wanted to argue. Wanted to tell him she wasn't going to hide behind him while he put himself in danger. But the tactical part of her brain, the part that had learned to survive by being smart instead of strong, knew he was right. Fine, she said reluctantly. You go first. But if things go wrong, then you burn everything to the ground and get Kira out. He said it simply, as if it were the most obvious plan in the world. Don't worry about me. Don't try to save me. Just get her to safety. I'm not leaving you. Marin. He cupped her face with his free hand, forcing her to meet his eyes. If it comes down to a choice between saving me and saving an innocent girl who's only in danger because of pack politics she doesn't understand, you save her. That's not negotiable. Tears burned in her eyes. You can't ask me to do that. I'm not asking. I'm telling you what will happen. His thumb brushed across her cheek, wiping away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. Because that's who you are. The wolf who'd sacrifice herself to save someone else. Who'd give up power and safety and her own future for a friend. That's why the bond chose you. Why my wolf chose you. Because you're better than all of us. I'm not. You are. He leaned forward, pressed his forehead to hers. And when this is over, when Kira is safe and we've dealt with the elders and I've restructured the entire pack system so nothing like this can happen again, I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you understand that. Making sure you believe it. The bond between them flared warm and golden, fed by his conviction. By the absolute certainty in his words. She kissed him. Hard and desperate and full of every emotion she couldn't put into words. Fear and gratitude and something that felt dangerously close to love, even though that should be impossible after only 3 days. He kissed her back just as fiercely, his hand sliding into her hair, holding her close like she was the only solid thing in a world that had tilted off its axis. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing harder than before, she saw something in his eyes that made her chest ache. Not just desire. Not just the bond. Something deeper. Something that looked like forever. We should go, she whispered, because if they stayed here any longer, she'd lose her nerve. She'd tell him to forget Kira, forget the compound, forget everything except this moment and the way his touch made her feel like she could be whole. He nodded, releasing her slowly, reluctantly. They shifted and ran. The compound came into view as the sky began to lighten from black to deep purple. Marin's heart lurched at the sight of it. The place that had been her prison for 7 years. The place where she'd learned to make herself invisible, to swallow her voice, to accept that she deserved nothing. It looked smaller than she remembered. Less imposing. Just buildings and walls and wolves who'd convinced themselves their fear was righteousness. Cashin shifted back to human form at the tree line. Marin followed, both of them breathing hard, covered in blood and dirt and exhaustion. There, Cashin said quietly, pointing to a building near the center of the compound. The kitchens. If they're holding her, that's where she'd be. Close to her normal routine. Makes it look less like a hostage situation if anyone asks questions. Marin's wolf snarled inside her, wanting blood. Wanting revenge. But she forced herself to think tactically. How many guards? I count 4 outside the kitchen entrance. Probably more inside. His eyes narrowed. And there. See the shadows near the Elders' Hall? At least 6 more warriors. Positioned strategically. They're expecting us. Of course they are. She studied the layout, her mind racing. What about the perimeter? Any patrols? 2 that I can see. Circling every 10 minutes. He glanced at the sky. We have maybe 20 minutes before sunrise. After that, more wolves will wake up. Morning routines. We'll lose any advantage surprise might give us. 20 minutes. It wasn't enough time. Couldn't possibly be enough time. But it was all they had. Okay, she said, forcing her voice to stay steady. You go through the main entrance. Make a lot of noise. Draw their attention. I'll circle around to the back of the kitchens. Find another way in. No, his hand shot out, catching her wrist. That's not the plan. You stay here. Hidden. I go in, locate Kira, signal you when I've secured her location. Then we extract together. That's a terrible plan. It's the only plan that doesn't get you killed in the first 30 seconds. His grip tightened. They want you, Marin. You're the target. The moment you set foot in that compound, every warrior there will converge on your position. You won't make it 10 feet. But you can. I'm the Alpha King. He said it without arrogance, just cold fact. They can't attack me without committing treason. That buys us time. Not much, but enough. She hated that he was right. Hated that she had to hide while he walked into danger. But Kira's life depended on them being smart, not brave. Fine, she said through gritted teeth. But if you're not out in 5 minutes, I'm coming in. Plan or no plan. 5 minutes. He pulled her close, kissed her hard and fast. I'll be back before you can count to 300. Then he was moving, striding out of the tree line with all the confidence of a wolf who owned the world. Maren crouched in the shadows, watching, her heart in her throat. Cashin approached the compound gates. The guards there straightened immediately, surprise and confusion flickering across their faces. Alpha King, one of them started. Open the gates, Cashin commanded, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. I'm here to speak with the elders. Sir, we weren't informed of your arrival. Open the gates. The guards exchanged uncertain glances. But in the end, they obeyed. Because he was the Alpha King, and even wolves loyal to the elders couldn't refuse a direct command from him. Not without revealing themselves as traitors. The gates swung open. Cashin walked through without hesitation, heading straight for the kitchens. Maren counted in her head. 1, 2, 3. More wolves were emerging now, drawn by the commotion. She recognized some of them. Kitchen workers reporting for morning duties. Warriors coming off night patrol. And there, her stomach clenched. Several of the elders themselves, moving toward Cashin with expressions that promised nothing good. 30 seconds. 45. Cashin reached the kitchen entrance. The guards there tried to block him, but he shouldered past them like they weighed nothing. Disappeared inside. Maren's hands clenched into fists. The silver light beneath her skin pulsed anxiously, responding to her fear. 1 minute. 90 seconds. Come on, she thought desperately. Find her. Signal me. We're running out of time. 2 minutes. The elders had gathered near the kitchen now. At least 8 of them, forming a loose circle around the entrance. Waiting. Like predators who knew their prey would have to come out eventually. 2.5 minutes. Movement at the kitchen door. But it wasn't Cashin. It was Torin. The gray wolf from the temple, now in human form, dragging someone behind him. Kira. Maren's breath stopped. Her friend looked terrified. Bruised. A gag in her mouth, hands bound behind her back. Torin held her by the hair, forcing her to her knees in front of the assembled elders. Well, Torin called out, his voice carrying across the compound. Looks like the Alpha King came alone. How disappointing. We were hoping the cursed girl would show her face. Cashin emerged from the kitchen, fury written across every line of his body. Let her go, Torin. She's innocent. This is between you and me. No, one of the elders stepped forward. An ancient woman Maren recognized as the one who'd tried to kill her the night of the ceremony. This is between us and the abomination who murdered our sister. The girl lives or dies based on one condition. The cursed wolf surrenders herself for judgment. That's not happening, Cashin said coldly. Then the girl dies. Torin pulled a knife from his belt. Pressed it to Kira's throat. Kira's eyes went wide with terror. Tears streamed down her face. 3 minutes. Maren couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Could only stare at her friend's terrified face and know with absolute certainty that Torin would do it. Would slit Kira's throat without hesitation if Maren didn't show herself. She started to rise. A hand clamped over her mouth. She spun, silver flame igniting in her palms, ready to burn whoever had grabbed her. And stopped. A young wolf crouched beside her. Male. Barely out of his teens. With kind eyes and a desperate expression. He held up his hands in a gesture of peace, then slowly removed his hand from her mouth. Don't, he whispered urgently. It's a trap. They have archers positioned in the buildings. The moment you show yourself, you're dead. They don't want to take you alive. They want you gone. Who are you? Maren demanded, her voice barely audible. My name is Stellan. He hesitated. I was assigned to the hunting party. But I don't agree with what the elders are doing. What they've done to you. To others like you. He glanced toward the compound. There are others who feel the same. Not many, but some. We've been waiting for a chance to act. Then act now, she hissed. They're going to kill Kira. They're going to try to kill you both. His expression was grim. But there's another way. A few of us, we've been preparing. Waiting for the right moment. This might be it. I don't have time for cryptic bullshit. The Alpha King is strong, Stellan said quickly. But he can't fight all the warriors in this compound alone. He needs backup. We can provide it. But you have to trust us. Trust me. Maren stared at him, her mind racing. Every instinct screamed at her to rush into the compound, flame blazing, and burn anyone who threatened Kira. But Stellan was right, that would get them all killed. What do you need me to do? She asked. Relief flooded his features. Wait for my signal. When you see it, shift and run straight for the kitchen. Don't stop. Don't fight. Just get to your friend. We'll handle the rest. What signal? He smiled grimly. You'll know it when you see it. Then he was gone, melting back into the forest shadows. Maren turned her attention back to the compound. For minutes now. Cashin was arguing with the elders, his voice rising, but they weren't backing down. Torin still held the knife to Kira's throat. And then, fire. Not silver flame. Regular fire. Orange and red and hungry, erupting from 3 different buildings simultaneously. Not the elders' hall or the kitchens, but storage buildings. Supply sheds. Structures that would burn fast and spread panic. Wolves began shouting. Running. The careful formation around the kitchen dissolved as warriors rushed to combat the flames before they spread to more critical buildings. The signal. Maren shifted and ran. Her silver-threaded wolf burst from the tree line at full speed, heading straight for the kitchen entrance. Archers appeared in the windows of surrounding buildings, just as Stellan had warned, but before they could draw, they were tackled by other wolves. Stellan's allies. The ones who'd been waiting. Cashin saw her coming. His eyes widened in alarm, but he didn't try to stop her. Instead, he shifted and launched himself at Torin. The Grey Wolf tried to react, tried to use Kira as a shield, but Cashin was faster. His jaws closed around Torin's wrist, forcing him to drop the knife. The 2 wolves collided in a tangle of teeth and fur and rage. Maren reached Kira. Shifted back to human form, her hands already working on the bindings. It's okay, she gasped. It's okay. I've got you. Kira's terrified eyes met hers. Recognition flickered through the fear. The ropes came free. Maren pulled the gag from Kira's mouth. Maren, Kira's voice was hoarse. They said you were cursed. That you'd kill me. I'd never hurt you. Maren pulled her friend to her feet. Can you run? I think so. Then run. Back to the tree line. There's a wolf named Stellan. He'll protect you. Go. Now. What about you? I'll be right behind you. A lie, but a necessary one. Kira hesitated for only a moment. Then she ran. Maren turned back to find chaos. The fires were spreading faster than expected. Warriors fought each other, those loyal to the elders versus Stellan's group. And in the center of it all, Cashin and Torin battled with the kind of violence that promised only one of them would walk away. The elders were retreating, falling back toward their hall, regrouping. And then Maren saw her. The ancient elder who'd tried to kill her. The one who'd looked at her with such hatred and disgust. She stood at the door of the elder's hall, her eyes locked on Maren, one hand raised. Silver light began to glow around her fingers. Not the same silver as Maren's flame. Darker. Colder. Wrong. Impossible, Maren breathed. But it wasn't impossible. Because the elders smiled, cruel and triumphant, and the dark silver light blazed brighter. Did you think you were the only one? The elder called across the chaos. The only flame-bearer left? You stupid child. We didn't hunt your kind to extinction. We converted them. Twisted them. Made them ours. The dark flame shot forward. Straight at Maren. She raised her hands instinctively, and her own silver flame exploded outward to meet it. The two flames collided midair, and the world turned white. The collision of flames was like two stars dying at once. Silver light, pure and ancient, met dark silver twisted by centuries of corruption. The impact sent shockwaves rippling outward, flattening Wolf's mid-fight, extinguishing the fires that had been spreading through the compound, turning the pre-dawn gray into blinding white. Maren felt the dark flame trying to invade hers, trying to corrupt it, to twist the power in her veins into something diseased and wrong. She pushed back, pouring everything she had into maintaining the purity of her flame, into keeping the darkness from seeping through. But the Elder was strong, stronger than she should have been, stronger than any normal wolf could be, because she'd been feeding on stolen power for decades. You feel it, don't you? The Elder's voice cut through the roar of conflicting flames. The difference between us. I have centuries of experience. Centuries of other flame-bearers' power absorbed into mine. You have 3 days of awakening and a handful of pretty beliefs about what you are. The dark flame pushed harder. Maren's knees buckled. You could have been useful, the Elder continued, advancing slowly. If you'd been compliant, obedient, we could have extracted your power slowly, carefully, added it to our collection. But you had to run. Had to corrupt the Alpha King with your bond. Had to force us to do this the hard way. Maren's arms shook with the effort of maintaining her flame. Sweat poured down her face. The silver light beneath her skin pulsed weakly, flickering like a candle in a storm. She was going to lose. The realization crashed through her with crushing finality. She wasn't strong enough. Wasn't trained enough. The first trial had unlocked her power, yes, but it hadn't taught her how to wield it against someone who'd been corrupting the flame for generations. That's right, the Elder said, reading the defeat in Maren's eyes. Accept it. Surrender. Make this easier on yourself. The Alpha King will live if you submit. The girl will live. All you have to do is let go. Everything in Maren screamed to fight, to resist, to burn rather than surrender. But Kira's face flashed through her mind. Cashin's voice promising he'd restructure everything to prevent this from happening again. The wolves like Stellan who'd risked their lives to help, who believed change was possible. They'd all die if she kept fighting and lost. At least if she surrendered, some of them might survive. The silver flame in her hands began to dim. No. The word came from behind her. Not loud, but absolute. Cashin. She felt him before she saw him, felt the bond blazing hot and fierce as he moved to stand beside her. His hand found hers, lacing their fingers together. And the moment their skin touched, everything changed. The silver flame in her hands blazed brighter. Not because she'd found new strength, but because his strength was pouring into her. Through the bond. Through the connection that tied their souls together. You're not alone, he said quietly. His own hand lifted, and silver light, not as bright as hers, but there, ignited in his palm. The bond doesn't just connect us emotionally. It connects our power. And you, he squeezed her hand. You've been sharing your flame with me since the moment we bonded. Didn't even realize it. But I felt it. Felt your power awakening something in my own blood. That's impossible, the Elder hissed. He's not a flame bearer. No, Cashin agreed. But I'm mated to one. And the bond recognizes no difference between us. His silver eyes met the Elder's dark gaze. Which means her power is my power. Her strength is my strength. And you, his voice dropped to something lethal. You're about to learn what happens when you threaten my mate. The flames in Maren's hands exploded outward with renewed fury. Not just her power now. Theirs. Combined. Amplified by the bond into something that made the Elder's stolen power look like a guttering candle. The dark flame shattered. The Elder staggered backward, shock and fury warring on her ancient face. This isn't possible. You broke the natural order, Maren said, her voice steady now. Strong. You twisted the flame into something it was never meant to be. Corrupted it. But you can't corrupt a true bond. Can't twist what the moon goddess herself created. She advanced, and the Elder retreated. Your power is stolen. Mine is earned. That's the difference between us. You know nothing. I know you're afraid. Maren's flame pulsed brighter with each step. I can feel it. The way your power trembles. The way it recognizes what I am and knows that it's in the presence of something older. Purer. Real. The other elders who'd been watching from the hall rushed forward. 3 of them raised their hands, and more dark silver flame ignited. They were all flame bearers. Or had been once, before they'd corrupted themselves. The whole council, Cashin breathed beside her. They've all been stealing power. For generations. That's how they've maintained control. Not through legitimate authority. Through stolen magic. Marin's stomach churned. How many flame bearers had they killed? How many had they drained of power before their deaths? How long had this been happening? The 3 elders unleashed their flames simultaneously. Marin and Cashin met them together, their combined power forming a shield of pure silver light. The dark flames crashed against it and dissolved like smoke. Stand down, Cashin commanded, his voice carrying the full weight of alpha authority. All of you. This ends now. The corruption ends. The lies end. Your reign ends. You can't command us, boy, the ancient elder spat. We made you Alpha King. We chose you from among dozens of candidates. Molded you. Controlled you. You think you have power? We gave you that power. And we can take it away. You gave me a title, Cashin corrected coldly. The power was always mine. And you never controlled me. You just convinced yourselves you did because I played along with your games. Because I didn't know the extent of your corruption. His hand tightened on Marin's. But I know now. And it's over. It's over when we say it's over. The elder's words cut off as Stellan emerged from the chaos, flanked by at least 20 other wolves. Young ones mostly. Warriors and pack members who looked at the elders with a mixture of disgust and betrayal. The fires are contained, Stellan reported, his eyes on Cashin. And we've secured the perimeter. No one gets in or out without your authorization, Alpha King. Relief flickered across Cashin's features. Casualties. Minor injuries. Nothing critical. But Stellan's expression darkened. We found something. In the Elder's Hall. A chamber beneath it. You need to see this. The ancient elder's face went pale. What did you find? Marin asked, though part of her already knew. Already felt the sick certainty settling into her bones. Remains, Stellan said quietly. Dozens of them. All showing signs of death by flame. All young. All with the bone structure that suggests flame-bearer lineage. Silence crashed over the compound. You've been killing them, Marin whispered. For decades. Maybe centuries. Any flame-bearer born into the packs, you killed them. Children. Took their power before they could grow strong enough to fight back. We were protecting the packs, another elder said, but his voice lacked conviction. Flame-bearers are dangerous. Unstable. We were preventing another war. You were hoarding power. Cashin's voice was ice. Murdering children to maintain your control. And you called yourselves leaders. Protectors. Guardians of our people. He released Marin's hand, stepped forward. Every wolf in the compound felt the weight of his fury. By the authority vested in me as Alpha King of the 5 territories, I hereby strip you of your positions. You are no longer elders. You are no longer leaders. You are prisoners awaiting trial for mass murder and conspiracy against the crown. You have no authority, the ancient elder started. I have every authority. Cashin's eyes blazed silver, brighter than Marin had ever seen them. And if you resist, I will execute you where you stand. Not as a king enforcing justice. As a mate defending his bond. Your choice. The elders looked at each other. Calculating. Assessing their odds. The Ancient One raised her hands. Dark flame ignited in her palms, more power than she'd shown before, pulled from reserves she must have been hoarding for emergencies. If we fall, she said, we take you both with us. She unleashed everything. All 4 corrupted elders did, their combined power forming a tsunami of dark silver flame that crashed toward Marin and Cashin with the force of a collapsing mountain. There was no time to think. No time to plan. Marin acted on pure instinct. She stepped in front of Cashin, spread her arms wide, and let her power explode outward. Not just the flame she'd been controlling. All of it. Every drop of power the temple had awakened. every bit of potential sleeping in her blood. The legacy of generations of flame-bearers who died before their time, their power never fully realized. She called to all of it, and it answered. Silver light erupted from her body like a supernova. It didn't just shield her and Cashin, it expanded outward in a dome that covered half the compound. Every wolf caught within it felt the power wash over them, through them, burning away corruption and lies and fear. The dark flames hit the dome and simply ceased to exist. Not extinguished. Not absorbed. Just unmade, as if they'd never been. The elders screamed as their stolen power was ripped from their bodies. Centuries of accumulated magic torn away in seconds, leaving them as they truly were, ancient, withered, powerless. They collapsed to their knees, reduced to what they'd always been beneath the stolen flame. Just wolves. Old and weak and terrified. The dome faded slowly. Marin stood at its center, her skin still glowing with silver light, her eyes blazing bright enough to rival the sun that was just beginning to crest the horizon. She looked down at the fallen elders and felt nothing. No satisfaction. No revenge. Just a hollow ache where fury should have been. They're mortal now, she said quietly. The stolen power is gone. They'll face trial as mortals. As murderers who don't have magic to hide behind anymore. Cashin moved to stand beside her. His hand found hers again, grounding her. What you just did, he started. I don't know what I just did. She stared at her still glowing hands. I didn't mean to take their power. I just meant to protect you. To protect everyone. But the flame, it recognized the corruption. Burned it away. Cleansed it. That's what it's supposed to do, a new voice said. Marin turned to find an elderly wolf standing at the edge of the crowd. Not one of the corrupted elders, this woman was different. Smaller. Quieter. With eyes that held ancient knowledge. Who are you? Marin asked. My name is Oriel. She hesitated. I was a flame-bearer once. Before they found me. Before they tried to take my power. She lifted her hands, and faint scars marked her palms. Burns. I escaped before they could drain me completely. Hid for 40 years. Pretended to be a normal wolf. Hoped they'd forget about me. But they didn't, Cashin said. They never forget. Oriel's expression was grim. They've been hunting flame-bearers since the first wars. Killing the strong ones. Draining the weak ones. Rewriting history to make us the villains. I've watched it happen for 4 decades. Watched them murder children and call it justice. She looked at Marin. But you're different. Stronger. You went to the temple. Began the trials. Started reclaiming what they've tried to erase. I didn't complete the trials, Marin said. I had to leave. To save Kira. And in doing so, you proved exactly what the trials were designed to test. Oriel smiled slightly. Power means nothing without compassion. Strength is useless if you won't use it to protect the innocent. The first trial tested your acceptance of self. But there's a reason you were drawn away before completing the others. She glanced at the fallen elders. You had to face this. Had to see the corruption. Had to choose between personal power and saving a friend. And you chose right. Marin's throat tightened. So what now? Now you go back. Oriel moved closer, her scarred hands reaching for Marin's glowing ones. Complete the remaining trials. Learn what you're truly capable of. Because this, she gestured at the compound. This is just one territory. One pack. But the corruption goes deeper. Spreads wider. There are other elders in other territories. Other councils hoarding stolen power. And they'll come for you once they learn what happened here. Let them come, Cashin said, his voice hard. They will. Oriel met his eyes. And they'll bring armies. They'll unite against you. Against her. Because she represents everything they fear, a flame-bearer who can't be controlled. Who can strip their stolen power away with a thought. She turned back to Marin. You need to be ready. Need to complete your training. Unlock all 7 gifts. Become what your ancestors were meant to be. Marin looked around the compound. At the wolves watching her with a mixture of awe and fear. At Stellan and his allies, who'd risked everything to help. At Kira, standing at the tree line with wide eyes, finally safe but clearly traumatized. At Cashin, who'd stood beside her through everything. Who'd shared his strength when hers faltered. Who'd chosen her over politics and power and everything his position should have demanded. How long, she asked. How long do we have before they come? Weeks, Oriel said. Maybe a month if we're lucky. They'll need time to organize. To decide on a strategy. But they will come. That's the one certainty. Weeks. It wasn't enough time. Could never be enough time. But it was what they had. Then we make it enough, Marin said. She looked at Cashin. You'll stay here. Deal with the fallout. Secure the territory. Make sure the corruption is rooted out completely. And you'll return to the temple, he finished. Not a question. I have to. If what Oriel says is true, if there are more corrupted councils, more stolen power, I need to be ready. Need to become strong enough to face them. I know. His hand cupped her cheek. Doesn't mean I have to like it. Come with me. The words slipped out before she could stop them. We'll go together. You and me. Like before. He smiled, sad and proud at once. I can't. Much as I want to. Someone needs to hold this territory together. Rebuild trust. Show the Pax that change is possible. That leadership doesn't require corruption. He pressed his forehead to hers. But I'll be here when you get back. Waiting. Always waiting. The bond between them ached with the knowledge of separation. But beneath the ache, something stronger pulsed. Understanding. Trust. The certainty that this wasn't goodbye. Just a temporary parting. I'll send wolves with you, Cashin said. Stellan and others who believe in what you represent. They'll keep you safe on the journey back. I don't need protection. I need to know you're not alone. His voice roughened. Please. Let me do this one thing. Let me make sure you have allies watching your back. She wanted to argue. Wanted to insist she was strong enough to face the return journey alone. But the truth was, she didn't want to be alone. Didn't want to leave him and have nothing but her own thoughts for company during the 3-day run back to the temple. Okay, she said softly. Send Stellan. And anyone else who wants to come. Relief flooded his features. He kissed her then, tender and fierce and full of promises about the future. About when they'd be together again. About the life they'd build once the corruption was burned away and the Pax were free. When they finally pulled apart, the sun had fully risen, bathing the compound in golden light that made the destruction and chaos look almost beautiful. Almost. Alpha King. One of Stellan's allies approached cautiously. What do you want us to do with the prisoners? Cashin turned to look at the fallen elders. They huddled together now, stripped of power, suddenly looking every one of their centuries. Small. Pathetic. Mortal. Put them in holding cells, he said. Under constant guard. No visitors without my direct approval. They'll stand trial when I've assembled a proper council. One without corruption. One that actually represents the will of the Pax. And if they resist? They won't. Cashin's voice was flat. They have no power left to resist with. They're just wolves now. Weak ones. Let them feel what it's like to be powerless. To be at the mercy of those stronger than them. Maybe they'll finally understand what they put others through. The warrior nodded and moved to carry out the orders. Marin watched the elders being led away. The ancient one, the first to attack, the one who'd hurt Kira, looked up as she passed. Their eyes met. You think you've won, the elder rasped. But you haven't. You've just painted a target on your back. Every corrupted council from here to the eastern shores will hunt you now. Will do whatever it takes to destroy you before you can destroy them. Let them try, Marin said quietly. I'm done running. Done hiding. Done being afraid of what I am. She held the elder's gaze steadily. And when they come for me, I'll show them exactly what happens when you try to destroy something that was never meant to be tamed. Fear flickered in the elder's eyes. Real fear. The kind that came from knowing you'd created the very thing that would end you. Then she was dragged away, disappearing into the building that would be her prison. Marin turned to find Kira approaching slowly, hesitantly. Her friend's eyes were red from crying, her wrists still bore marks from the bindings, but she was alive. Safe. Marin, Kira's voice broke. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. About any of it. About what they'd done to you. About the flame. If I'd known. You would have helped them kill me? Marin asked gently. Or you would have been killed trying to protect me? Kira flinched. I don't know. I'd like to think I would have helped. But I was scared. I believed what they told me. That you were dangerous. Cursed. I never questioned it. Never thought to look deeper. That's not your fault. Marin moved closer, pulled her friend into a careful embrace. They lied to everyone. Made us all complicit in something horrible. But it's over now. Or it will be, once I finish what I started. Kira pulled back, searching Marin's face. You're leaving again. I have to. But I'll come back. She glanced at Cashin. We both will. And when we do, things will be different. Better. I promise. I believe you. Kira managed a shaky smile. You always were stronger than any of us realized. Even when you were scrubbing floors and keeping your head down. I saw it sometimes. The fire in you. I just didn't know it was literal. Despite everything, Marin laughed. It felt good. Normal. A reminder that not everything had to be heavy and terrible. They talked for a few more minutes, Marin making sure Kira was truly okay, promising to write, to send updates. Then Stellan approached with 4 other wolves, all young, all wearing expressions of determination, mixed with nervousness. We're ready when you are, he said to Marin. To escort you back to the temple. She nodded, then turned for one last look at Cashin. He stood among the ruins of what had been, already beginning the work of building what would be. Already gathering wolves around him, issuing orders, taking control. Being the Alpha King he'd always been meant to be. Not the puppet the elders had tried to create, but a true leader. Their eyes met across the distance. I'll be waiting, asterisk he sent through the bond. Not words, exactly. Just feeling. Promise. I'll come back, asterisk she sent in return. I swear it. Then she shifted, her silver-threaded wolf taking shape beneath the morning sun. And with Stellan and his allies flanking her, she ran. Back toward the temple. Back toward the remaining trials. Back toward discovering what it truly meant to be a flame-bearer in a world that had spent centuries trying to destroy everything she represented. But this time, she ran toward something instead of away from it. Ran toward power. Toward truth. Toward the destiny that had been waiting for her since before she was born. The compound disappeared behind her. Cashin disappeared with it. But the bond remained, stretching across the distance, reminding her that she wasn't alone. Would never be alone again. The temple called to her blood. The remaining trials waited. And somewhere in the territories beyond, corrupted councils were learning what had happened. Were gathering their forces. Preparing for war. But Marin wasn't afraid. Not anymore. Because she'd finally learned the truth the elders had spent centuries trying to bury. She wasn't cursed. She was flame made flesh. And she was done apologizing for burning bright. The journey back to the temple took 2 days. Not 3, as it had before. Marin and her escorts pushed harder, ran faster, driven by the knowledge that time was a luxury they couldn't afford. Stellan and his 4 companions, 2 females named Linnea and Syra, and 2 males named Cade and Bryn, proved themselves capable and loyal. They didn't question. Didn't hesitate. They simply ran beside her, watching the forests for threats, ensuring she reached her destination safely. But it was the silence between them that spoke loudest. They were afraid of her. Not the hostile fear the elders had wielded like a weapon. This was different. Reverent. The kind of fear that came from witnessing something powerful and ancient and not quite understanding it. They'd seen what she'd done at the compound. Watched her strip centuries of stolen power from the corrupted elders with a thought. Seen her glow like a living star. And now they followed her because they believed she was their only hope against what was coming. Marin felt the weight of their faith like chains. When they finally reached the ravine, the place where the bridge had collapsed, Stellan shifted back to human form and stared at the gap with dismay. How do we cross? He asked. The bridge is gone. Marin studied the ravine. It was just as wide as before, just as impossible. But something had changed. She could feel it. A pull from the temple on the other side. Not calling to her anymore. Welcoming her home. I'll go first, she said. Stay here. If I make it across, I'll find a way to bring you over. And if you don't make it? Linnea asked quietly. Then you return to the compound. Tell Cashin what happened. Tell him. Her throat tightened. Tell him I tried. Before any of them could protest, she shifted and ran. Straight toward the edge of the ravine. She heard Stellan shout behind her, heard the others gasp, but she didn't slow. Didn't think. Just trusted the pull in her chest, the certainty singing through her blood that the temple wouldn't let her fall. Her paws left solid ground. For one terrifying moment, she hung suspended over nothing but mist and the promise of death far below. Then silver light erupted beneath her feet. Not solid. Not quite. But substantial enough to hold her weight. Platforms of pure flame, appearing just before her paws touched them, creating a bridge of light and power across the impossible gap. She ran across the silver flames like they were stone. Reached the other side in seconds. Turned and looked back to find her escorts staring at her in stunned silence. The temple recognizes me, she called across the distance. It won't let me fall. But I don't know if it will hold you. You should go back. Return to Cashin. Tell him I made it. No, Stellan shifted back to human form, his jaw set with stubborn determination. We came to protect you. To see this through. If there's any chance we can cross, we're taking it. It's too dangerous. So is everything else we've done in the past 3 days. He smiled grimly. Besides, you think the Alpha King won't tear us apart if we come back without you? We're crossing. One way or another. The others nodded their agreement. Merrin wanted to argue. Wanted to order them to stay safe. But she understood the look in their eyes. The need to be part of something bigger than themselves. To stand against the corruption that had defined their world for so long. She couldn't take that from them. One at a time, she called. I'll hold the bridge as long as I can. But if it starts to collapse, turn back. Promise me. We promise, Stellan said. It was a lie, and they both knew it. He shifted and ran. Merrin closed her eyes, reached deep into the power humming beneath her skin, and pulled. The silver flames responded instantly, eager, forming platforms beneath Stellan's paws just as they had for her. He crossed the gap in seconds, stumbling slightly as he reached solid ground, but otherwise unharmed. One by one, the others followed. Linnea and Syra crossed together, their wolves smaller and faster, trusting each other enough to run in perfect synchronization. Cade came next, his massive wolf moving with surprising grace. And finally Bryn, the youngest of the group, who hesitated at the edge before throwing himself forward with a leap of faith that made Merrin's heart stop. The silver flames caught him, held him, brought him safely across. When all 5 stood on the temple side of the ravine, Merrin released the power. The flame bridge dissolved, returning to wherever such magic lived when it wasn't being called. That was... Linnea's voice was breathless. That was incredible. That was terrifying, Syra corrected. But she was smiling. They approached the temple entrance together. The massive stone pillars loomed above them, covered in symbols that seemed to pulse with their own light. The words carved above the doorway, *, those who carry the flame shall find truth. Those who fear it shall find ash *, glowed silver as Merrin passed beneath them. Inside, the temple was exactly as she'd left it. And yet completely different. The crystals in the ceiling blazed brighter now, as if celebrating her return. The carvings on the walls seemed to move in the flickering light, telling stories of flame-bearers long dead. And at the center of the trial chamber, the pool waited. Still. Expectant. The 7 stone figures around its edge had changed positions. One of them, the first, the one closest to where Merrin had entered, now faced fully forward. Its carved eyes seemed to see her. Its stone mouth was curved in what might have been a smile. First trial complete, *, a voice whispered. Not the multiple voices from before. Just one. Ancient. Female. Kind. * welcome home, daughter. We've been waiting, *. Stellan and the others stopped at the barrier that had prevented Cashin from following her into the pool. They could feel it, the invisible wall that separated those who carried the flame from those who didn't. You'll have to complete the trials alone, Stellan said, understanding dawning in his eyes. We can't follow you any further. I know. Marin turned to face them. Find shelter. Rest. The temple will provide for you as it did for Cashin and me. But don't leave the safe areas. Some parts of this place are still dangerous. Still testing. How long will the trials take? Kate asked. I don't know. Hours. Days. However long it takes. She looked at each of them in turn. Thank you. For coming with me. For believing in something you didn't fully understand. We believe in you, Linnea said simply. That's enough. Marin's throat tightened. She nodded once, unable to speak past the emotion, then turned toward the pool. The water had changed color since she'd last stood here. No longer gold. Now it shimmered with all 7 colors of flame, silver and gold and blue and green and red and violet, and one more color she couldn't name. A color that existed only in magic and dreams. She stepped into the water. It rose around her, warm and welcoming, until she stood chest-deep in the center of the pool. The 7 stone figures moved as one, their heads turning toward her, their mouths opening in unison. 6 trials remain, asterisk they spoke with that single ancient voice. Asterisk 6 truths to claim. 6 gifts to unlock. Are you ready, daughter of flame? Asterisk. I'm ready, Marin said. Then let us begin, asterisk. The water pulled her under. The second trial was memory. She stood in a place between places, not the temple, not the world, but somewhere that existed only in the space between heartbeats. Around her, scenes from her life played out like reflections in broken mirrors. Her grandmother, teaching her about the flame before fear took her voice. You're special, little star. Never forget that. The night of the bonfire. Kale's laughter. The shame that had carved itself into her bones. 7 years of scrubbing floors and making herself invisible. Cashin's kiss at the ceremony. The bond fracturing. The elders attacking. The silver flame erupting for the first time in years. Every moment of pain. Every second of shame. Every time she'd believed the lies they'd told her about what she was. Memory shapes us, asterisk the voice said. Asterisk, but it does not define us. The second truth, you are not your past. You are what you choose to become, asterisk. The scenes shattered like glass. And in their place, new images formed. Not memories. Possibilities. Futures that could be if she chose them. Marin standing before the corrupted councils, flame blazing, burning away centuries of lies. Marin teaching young flame-bearers how to control their gifts, ensuring no more children died in fear and ignorance. Marin beside Cashin, building a new world where power served justice instead of corruption. So many futures. So many paths. All of them possible. All of them hers to choose. You have claimed this truth, asterisk the voice said. Asterisk the gift of memory is yours. May it serve you well, asterisk. Power flooded into her. Not the wild, uncontrolled flame of before. This was different. Precise. She could feel it settling into her mind like a key turning in a lock. Now when she touched her memories, she could see them with perfect clarity. Could draw on the lessons of the past without being trapped by them. Could remember everything, every face, every word, every moment. And use that knowledge as a weapon or a shield. The second trial was complete. The third trial was pain. She stood in fire now. Real fire that burned without consuming. Flames that licked at her skin, testing her resolve, her endurance, her willingness to suffer for power. It hurt. Gods, it hurt. Like being unmade one cell at a time. Like dying slowly enough to feel every second of it. Pain is the price of power, asterisk the voice said, no longer kind. Testing now. Demanding. Asterisk those who cannot endure will fall. Can you endure, daughter? Asterisk. Marin wanted to scream. Wanted to beg for it to stop. Every nerve in her body was on fire, every breath agony. But then she remembered. The elders, draining flame-bearers of their power. Killing children who couldn't fight back. The corruption that had spread through the territories like disease. If she fell now, who would stop them? Who would stand against the councils when they came with their armies and their stolen power? Cashin needed her. Stellan and his allies needed her. Every flame-bearer still in hiding, still afraid, still believing the lies. They needed her. She couldn't fall. Wouldn't fall. I can endure, she gasped through the pain. I will endure. Because others suffered worse. Because children died in flames like these and never got to claim the power that should have been theirs. I endure for them. For every flame-bearer who never got the chance to burn bright. The flames intensified. Grew hotter. More brutal. She endured. Seconds became minutes. Minutes became hours. Or maybe just heartbeats that felt like eternity. And then, the fire stopped. She stood unburned. Unmarked. The pain was gone as if it had never been. You have claimed this truth, asterisk the voice said, and there was pride in it now. Asterisk the gift of endurance is yours. May it serve you well, asterisk. More power. This time settling into her body, her bones, her very cells. She felt herself becoming stronger. More resilient. Wounds would heal faster now. Exhaustion would take longer to claim her. She could push her body further, harder, longer than any normal wolf. The third trial was complete. The fourth trial was choice. She stood at a crossroads. 3 paths stretched before her, each one showing a different future. The first path, power. Pure, absolute, devastating. She could claim all 7 gifts, complete the trials, and become the most powerful flame-bearer in history. Strong enough to burn away every corrupted council. To reshape the world in her image. To rule as the elders had ruled, but with pure flame instead of stolen power. The second path, peace. She could walk away. Abandon the trials. Return to Cashin and build a quiet life away from politics and power. Let others fight the corruption. Let the world burn or heal without her. Just be happy. Just be safe. The third path, balance. Complete the trials not for power, but for purpose. Use the gifts to protect, to teach, to heal. Fight when necessary, but never seek dominance. Stand as a guardian, not a ruler. Live in the space between power and peace, never choosing one over the other completely. Choose, asterisk the voice commanded. Your choice will shape everything that follows. Marin stared at the 3 paths. Power was tempting. Gods, it was tempting. To never be afraid again. To never be hurt. To have the strength to crush anyone who threatened those she loved. Peace was tempting too. To walk away from all of this. To just be Marin, not a flame-bearer, not a legend, not a weapon. Just a wolf who loved her mate and wanted a simple life. But neither felt right. Power corrupts. She'd seen it in the elders. In the way they'd justified murdering children. In the way absolute strength had twisted them into monsters. And peace was impossible while others still suffered. While children were still being hunted. While corruption still festered in the councils. Balance, she said. I choose balance. I'll complete the trials because the world needs someone who can stand against the corruption. But I won't seek power for its own sake. I'll use what I'm given to protect those who can't protect themselves. To teach those who come after me. To build something better, not rule over something broken. The 3 paths dissolved. She stood on a single road now. Narrow. Difficult. But hers. You have claimed this truth, asterisk the voice said. Asterisk the gift of wisdom is yours. May it serve you well, asterisk. This power settled into her mind, sharpening her thoughts, helping her see connections she'd missed before. Strategy. Tactics. The ability to read people, to understand motivations, to know when to fight and when to negotiate. The 4th trial was complete. The 5th trial was loss. She stood in darkness now. Absolute and suffocating. And one by one, everything she cared about was taken from her. Cashin's presence through the bond gone. Severed. As if he'd never existed. Her friends, Stellan, Kira, all of them, their faces fading from her memory until she couldn't remember their names. Her power, the flame dimming, dying, leaving her empty and cold. Even her sense of self, her identity dissolving until she couldn't remember who she was or why she was here. She stood alone in the dark. Nothing. No one. Just void. This is what waits at the end, Asterisk, the voice said, and for the first time, it sounded sad. Asterisk, loss. Emptiness. The price of caring is that eventually you lose what you care about. Can you accept this, daughter? Can you love knowing that loss is inevitable? Asterisk. Marin wanted to say no. Wanted to reject the trial. Refused to accept a truth so painful. But that would be a lie. Because she'd already lost so much. Her grandmother. Her childhood. 7 years of her life to shame and fear. She'd almost lost Kira. Almost lost Cashin before she'd even really found him. And yes, someday, whether in battle or to time, she would lose him. Would lose everyone. That was the price of loving. Of connecting. Of choosing to care about anything beyond her own survival. But the alternative, living in isolation to avoid the pain of loss, that wasn't living at all. That was just existing. Surviving without purpose. I accept it, she whispered into the dark. I accept that I'll lose them. All of them. Eventually. But that doesn't make loving them wrong. It makes it precious. Temporary. Beautiful because it's fragile. I choose to love anyway. I choose to connect anyway. Because the pain of loss is worth the joy of having them, even briefly. Light returned. Cashin's presence flooded back through the bond, warm and solid and real. Her memories restored. Her power blazing bright. Everything she'd lost returned. You have claimed this truth, asterisk, the voice said, and it was smiling now. She could hear it. Asterisk, the gift of connection is yours. May it serve you well, asterisk. This power settled into her heart. She could feel it strengthening the bond with Cashin. Creating new, smaller bonds with the wolves who'd sworn to follow her. Letting her sense their emotions, their needs, their fears. Making her not just a leader but a true guardian who could feel what her people felt. The 5th trial was complete. The 6th trial was rage. She stood in flames again. But not the cleansing fire of the 3rd trial. This was darker. Hotter. Born from every injustice, every cruelty, every child murdered for power they couldn't control. The rage wanted out. Wanted to burn. Wanted to destroy everything that had ever hurt anyone. Rage is power, asterisk, the voice said. Asterisk, but unchecked rage is destruction. Can you hold it, daughter? Can you feel it without becoming it? Asterisk. The flames pressed in. Marin felt the fury of generations of flamebearers who died too soon. Felt their anger at being hunted, at being feared, at being labeled monsters for the crime of existing. It would be so easy to let go. To become that rage. To return to the territories and burn every corrupted council to ash. To make them suffer as they'd made others suffer. Justice through fire. Vengeance through flame. But vengeance wasn't justice. And rage without purpose was just destruction. I feel it, she said through gritted teeth. The flames licked at her, inside her, trying to consume her from within. I feel every bit of it. The fury. The need for revenge. The desire to make them hurt. But I won't become it. I'll use it. Channel it. Let it fuel me without controlling me. Rage is a tool. A weapon. But I'm the one who wields it. The flames roared higher. Testing her. Pushing her. Trying to break her control. She held firm. Breathed through the fury. Acknowledged it. Accepted it. And then gently, carefully. Shaped it into something purposeful. The flames calmed. You have claimed this truth, asterisk, the voice said. Asterisk, the gift of righteous fury is yours. May it serve you well, asterisk. This power settled into her core. She could feel it there, the rage of her ancestors, ready to be called upon when needed. But controlled now. Disciplined. A weapon she could draw but also sheath. The 6th trial was complete. The 7th trial was sacrifice. She stood in the trial chamber again. The pool before her. The 6 completed stone figures glowing with silver light. And beside the pool, a vision formed. Cashin, surrounded by enemies. Corrupted councils from all 5 territories, their stolen power blazing. He fought brilliantly, but he was outnumbered. Outmatched. Dying. You have a choice, asterisk, the voice said. Asterisk, complete this final trial and claim the 7th gift. Become what you were meant to be. But by the time you finish, he will be dead. the bond will break. You will have the power to avenge him, but not to save him, asterisk. Marin's heart stopped. Or, asterisk, the voice continued. Asterisk, abandon the trials now. Leave with 6 gifts instead of 7. Return to him. Save him. But you will never be as strong as you could have been. Never unlock your full potential. And when the corrupted councils come, and they will come, you may not be strong enough to stop them, asterisk. Passion or power. Love or destiny. The choice that had defined flamebearers since the beginning. Marin stared at the vision of Cashin fighting, dying, calling for her through a bond that grew weaker with each passing second. And she knew with absolute certainty what the right answer was. I choose him, she said. No hesitation. No doubt. I choose him every time. Power means nothing if I lose the one person fate chose for me. I'll fight the councils with 6 gifts. I'll find another way. But I won't sacrifice him for the promise of strength I might not even need. The vision dissolved. Cashin vanished. The voice laughed, joyful and bright and proud. You have claimed this truth, asterisk, it said. Asterisk, the final truth. The greatest truth. The one that every flamebearer must learn before they can wield the 7th gift, asterisk. What? Marin looked around, confused. But I chose to leave. I chose him over power. And in doing so, you proved you were ready to hold the power, asterisk. The 7th stone figure began to move, stepping down from its alcove. Not stone anymore. Living. A woman with silver eyes and flame in her hair. Asterisk, the 7th gift is not strength, daughter. It is sacrifice. The willingness to give up everything, even power, for something greater than yourself. You chose love over destiny. That is the ultimate sacrifice. And, because you were willing to make it, asterisk. The woman touched Marin's forehead. Power exploded through her. Not the slow, settling power of the previous trials. This was everything at once. All 7 gifts blazing to life simultaneously, combining, amplifying, becoming something more than their individual parts. Memory. Endurance. Wisdom. Connection. Righteous fury. And now sacrifice. The gift that made all the others meaningful. She could feel it reshaping her. Not physically, she was still Marin, still herself, but fundamentally. She was becoming what flamebearers were always meant to be. Not weapons. Not rulers. But guardians who would sacrifice everything to protect those they loved. The woman, the first flamebearer, Marin realized, smiled. You are ready, asterisk, she said. Asterisk, the trials are complete. The 7 gifts are yours. Use them wisely. Use them well. And remember, asterisk. She began to fade, dissolving back into stone. Power is not the goal. Love is. Power is just the tool we use to protect what we love, asterisk. Then she was gone. Marin stood alone in the trial chamber, glowing so brightly the crystals above looked dim by comparison. Silver flame danced across her skin, through her hair, in her eyes. All 7 gifts humming inside her, waiting to be called upon. She was complete. She was ready. She was flamebearer. The barriers around the pool dissolved. Stellan and the others rushed forward, their eyes wide with awe and something that looked like fear. Stellan couldn't finish. Could only stare. Changed, Linnea whispered. You look the same. Marin interrupted gently. The glow was already fading, the power settling into something she could contain. I'm still me. Just more. The trials? Kate asked. Complete. All 7. She looked at each of them. We need to go. Now. The corrupted councils, they're coming. I can feel them gathering. Preparing for war. And Cashin, the bond pulsed, strong and alive. He's waiting. Holding the territory. Trying to build something better. We need to get back before everything falls apart. Can we make it in time? Syra asked. Marin smiled. Not her old, uncertain smile. This was something new. Confident. Powerful. We can do better than that. She reached for the 7th gift, sacrifice, and wove it together with the others. Silver flames erupted around her escorts, not burning them but lifting them. Carrying them. Hold on, she said. Then she ran. Not the desperate flight of 3 days ago. This was different. The flames carried them forward at impossible speed, turning the 3-day journey into hours. The forest blurred around them, the world reshaping itself to accommodate their passage. The temple fell away behind them. And ahead lay the compound. Cashin. The future they would build together. The corrupted councils might be gathering. War might be coming. But Marin was ready now. She had completed the trials. Claimed the gifts. Become what she was always meant to be. And anyone who threatened her mate, her pack, her people, they would learn what it meant to face a true flamebearer. They would learn that some fires couldn't be extinguished. They would learn that she was done running, done hiding, done apologizing for what she was. She was flame made flesh. And she was coming home. They arrived at the compound as the sun set on the 3rd day since Marin had left. But everything had changed. The flames she'd summoned carried them through the forest at impossible speed, collapsing distance and time until the journey that should have taken days was measured in hours. When Marin finally released the power and let them slow to normal speed, her escorts stumbled slightly, disoriented by the velocity, by the magic that had transported them. But Marin stood steady, centered. The 7 gifts hummed inside her like a second heartbeat, and she felt, for the first time in her entire life, completely whole. The compound walls rose before them, but something was wrong. Smoke drifted above the buildings. Not the chaotic smoke of the fires from days ago. This was organized, controlled. Signal fires burning from the watchtowers in patterns that spoke of warnings, of threats gathering beyond the perimeter. "They're here," Stellan said quietly, his nose lifting to test the wind. "I can smell them. Foreign wolves. At least 3 packs worth. Maybe more." Marin's enhanced senses confirmed it. She could smell them too, wolves that didn't belong to this territory. Wolves carrying the scent of other lands, other councils. And beneath that, something else. Something familiar and wrong at the same time. Corrupted flame. The stolen power of the councils, gathered and ready for war. "How many?" Linnea asked, her voice tight with tension. "Too many," Marin said. She closed her eyes, reached through the bond, and found Cashin. His presence blazed back at her alive, fighting, holding the line. But exhausted. Wounded. Struggling against odds that even an Alpha King couldn't overcome alone. "I'm here," she sent through the bond. "I'm coming." His response was immediate. Relief and warning tangled together. "Stay back. It's a trap. They're waiting for you, I know. Let them wait. I'm not the same wolf who left 3 days ago, She opened her eyes to find her escorts watching her. "Cashin's alive," she said. But barely. He's been holding the territory against multiple packs. They've been testing the defenses, probing for weaknesses. And now she listened to something carried on the wind. Voices. Commands being shouted in the distance. Now they're preparing for a final assault. They know I'm back. They can feel it. And they're going to throw everything they have at us. "What do we do?" Bryn asked. The youngest of the group looked terrified but determined. Marin turned to face them all. These wolves who'd followed her to the temple and back. Who'd trusted her with their lives. Who stood with her now even though they could probably smell the gathering army just as clearly as she could. "You go to Cashin," she said. "Through the eastern entrance. It's less defended, and they won't expect reinforcements from that direction. Find him. Tell him I'm here. Tell him," her throat tightened. "Tell him I completed the trials. All 7. And that I'm about to show the corrupted councils exactly what a real flamebearer can do." "You're not coming with us?" Syra's eyes widened. "You're going to face them alone?" "Not alone." Marin lifted her hands, and silver flame danced across her palms. Controlled. Beautiful. Deadly. "I have the gifts now. The power of generations. And I have something the corrupted councils never understood. I have purpose. They collect power like treasure. Hoard it. Use it to control and dominate. But I'm not here to rule. I'm here to protect. There's a difference. And they're about to learn what that difference means." Marin, Stellan started. Go. Her voice carried command now. Alpha authority born not from dominance, but from absolute certainty. Get to Cashin. Help him hold the compound. Protect the innocent wolves who have nothing to do with this war. That's your purpose. This, she gestured toward the gathering forces beyond the walls. This is mine. For a moment, she thought they might argue. Might refuse to leave her. Then Stellan nodded once. We'll make sure he's safe. But you, his voice roughened. You come back. Whatever happens out there, you survive and you come back. Because we're not building a better world without you in it. I'll come back, she promised. I always do. They shifted and ran toward the eastern entrance, disappearing into the twilight. Marin stood alone outside the compound walls as darkness fell. She could feel them now. The corrupted councils. 3 no, 4 of them had gathered. Wolves from territories across the lands, all united by fear of what she represented. All carrying stolen power they'd accumulated over decades. Maybe centuries. They'd come to end her. To destroy the last true flamebearer before she could inspire others. Before she could show the world that the old stories were real, that the flame wasn't something to fear but something sacred. She walked toward them. Not running. Not hiding. Just walking with steady, purposeful steps toward the army gathered beyond the compound's northern perimeter. They emerged from the forest as she approached. Dozens of them. Hundreds maybe. All shifted, all ready for battle. And at their center, 8 figures in human form. Ancient. Powerful. Radiating the dark silver light of corrupted flame. The council leaders. They'd come themselves instead of sending warriors. That told her everything. They were afraid. Afraid that regular wolves wouldn't be enough. Afraid that they needed to face her directly or risk losing everything they'd built on the foundation of stolen power and murdered children. Good. They should be afraid. One of them stepped forward. A man who looked no older than 40, but whose eyes held centuries. Marin. The cursed girl. The abomination. The mistake. His voice carried across the distance. You've caused us considerable trouble. Disrupted our carefully balanced systems. Corrupted the Alpha King with your bond. Murdered our sister councils. For these crimes, you will be executed. Your power will be absorbed. Your existence will be erased. And the natural order will be restored. Marin stopped walking. 20 feet separated her from the nearest warriors. 30 from the council leaders. Natural order, she repeated. Her voice was quiet, but somehow carried perfectly. The gifts enhancing it. Making sure every wolf present could hear. Is that what you call it? The murder of children? The theft of sacred power? The centuries of lies you've used to justify genocide. We maintained peace. You maintained control. She let flames dance across her hands. Not threatening yet. Just present. There's a difference. Peace built on mass graves isn't peace. It's just horror dressed in pretty words. Another council leader, a woman with white hair and cold eyes, smiled. Such passion. Such righteous fury. It would almost be admirable if it weren't so naive. You think you can change anything? You're one wolf. We are 4 councils united. We have hundreds of warriors. Decades of accumulated power. What do you have? Some temple tricks and a bond with a king who's currently bleeding out in his own compound. The words were meant to hurt. To make her doubt. Instead, they crystallized something inside her. This was the moment. The choice. Not between power and peace, she'd already made that choice in the trials. This was different. This was choosing what kind of world she wanted to fight for. What kind of future she wanted to build. She could kill them all. Right here. Right now. The 7 gifts burning inside her were more than strong enough. She could unleash flames that would consume the entire army. Could burn away centuries of corruption in seconds. But then she'd be exactly what they'd always claimed flamebearers were. Dangerous. Uncontrollable. Monsters who solve problems with violence and fire. Or she could choose differently. You're right, she said quietly. I am one wolf. One flamebearer. Alone, I might not be enough to change everything. Might not survive this night. But here's what you don't understand, she let her power flare brighter. Let it build until every wolf present could feel the heat of it. I'm not trying to change everything. I'm just trying to change one thing. One fundamental lie you've built your power on. And what lie is that? The first council leader asked, amused. That flame bearers are cursed. That we're monsters. That we deserve to die. She met his eyes across the distance. I'm going to prove you wrong. Right here. Right now. In front of all these warriors you brought. I'm going to show them what a true flame bearer is. What we were always meant to be. And then she smiled. Cold. Certain. Then I'm going to give them a choice. Just like the temple gave me. Stand with corruption or stand for something better. Follow leaders who built their power on the bones of children, or follow someone who'd sacrifice everything to protect the innocent. You think they'll choose you? The white-haired woman laughed. You're delusional. These warriors are loyal to us. Have been for generations. Then you have nothing to fear from letting me speak. Marin raised her voice. Warriors. Wolves who came here thinking you were fighting a monster. I want you to know something. Your leaders, these councils you serve. They've been lying to you. For decades. For centuries. About what flame bearers are. About what we represent. And I can prove it. She lifted her hands higher, and the silver flames blazed brighter. But she didn't attack. Didn't threaten. Instead, she shaped the flames into something else. Images. Memories pulled from the gift of memory and projected for all to see. The chamber beneath the Elder's Hall. Dozens of skeletons. Children's bones. All showing signs of death by flame. The corrupted councils draining power from captured flame bearers. Stealing gifts that should have been sacred. Murdering wolves whose only crime was being born different. Centuries of lies. Of genocide dressed up as protection. Of power hoarded and twisted until it became the very monster they'd claimed to fight against. The images hung in the air, undeniable and devastating. Silence crashed over the gathered army. These are your leaders, Marin said quietly. These are the wolves you serve. They've murdered children to maintain their power. Twisted sacred gifts into weapons of control. And now they've come here to kill me because I represent the one thing they can't allow, truth. The truth that flame bearers aren't cursed. That we're not monsters. That we're guardians who were hunted to near extinction because we threatened their authority. She let the images dissolve. Let the silver flames return to her hands. So here's your choice, she continued. You can fight for them. Attack me. Try to kill the last true flame bearer. Help them maintain a system built on murdered children and stolen power. Or, she paused. Or you can stand down. Walk away. Refuse to be part of this. Refuse to let them turn you into weapons against something beautiful and sacred. Lies. One of the council leaders, a man with scars covering his face, snarled. She's manipulating you. Using her corrupted power to create false images. Trying to turn you against us. Don't listen. Then let them decide for themselves. Marin's voice cut through his. If I'm lying, if these images are false, they'll attack. They'll do their duty. But if even one warrior believes me, if even one wolf looks at those bones and realizes what their leaders have done, then maybe, just maybe, change is possible. The council leaders unleashed their power. All 8 of them together, their corrupted flames combining into a massive wave of dark silver fire that crashed toward Marin like a tsunami of stolen magic. She met it with her own flame. Pure silver light exploded from her body, forming a shield so bright it turned night into day. The two forces collided. For a moment, the world held its breath. And then, slowly, impossibly, Marin's flame began to push back. Not because she was stronger. She was just one flame-bearer, no matter how gifted. They were 8, with centuries of accumulated power. But her flame was pure, uncorrupted. And the 7th gift, sacrifice, burned at its core, amplifying everything, making her willing to give everything for this moment. For these wolves watching. For the chance to prove that flame-bearers deserve to exist. The dark flames couldn't withstand that purity. They shattered against her light, dissolving like shadows at dawn. The council leaders staggered backward, shock written across their ancient faces. Impossible, one of them breathed. She's just one. She's what we should have been, another whispered. And there was something in her voice. Something that might have been regret. Might have been recognition of what they'd lost when they'd chosen power over purpose. Maren advanced. 1 step. 2. The silver flames around her grew brighter with each movement, casting light across the gathered army. And one by one, wolves began to shift back to human form. Not attacking. Not fleeing. Just standing down. Warriors looking at each other with confusion and dawning horror. Looking at their leaders with questions they'd never dared ask before. Is it true? One of them called out. The children. The murders. Did you really? Silence, a council leader roared. You will obey. No, the word came from a female warrior near the front. Young. Fierce. No, I won't. Not anymore. I joined to protect our people. To defend against threats. Not to help murder children. Not to serve wolves who steal power they're too weak to earn themselves. She shifted, turned, and walked away from the army. Away from the councils. Toward Maren. Another warrior followed. Then 3 more. Then a dozen. The army was fracturing. Not all of them. Maybe not even most of them. But enough. Enough wolves choosing to question. To refuse. To stand down rather than fight for something they no longer believed in. The council leaders watched their forces disintegrating with growing panic. Kill her, one of them screamed. All of you. Kill her now or face execution for treason. The remaining warriors, the ones still loyal, still believing, still too afraid to question, shifted and charged. Maren didn't move. Didn't run. Just stood her ground as dozens of wolves rushed toward her. And then Cashin was there. His massive black wolf crashed into the front line, scattering warriors like leaves. And behind him, Stellan and his group, but not alone. They'd brought dozens more. Wolves from the compound who'd chosen to fight. Who'd chosen to protect her. The battle erupted. Wolves fought wolves in a chaos of teeth and claws and desperate fury. But Maren could see it, could feel it through the gift of connection. The hesitation in some of the attackers. The doubt. The moment when warriors who'd come to kill her instead found themselves questioning everything they'd been taught. She wove through the battle, using her flames not to kill but to subdue. To disarm. To protect. Every wolf she touched felt the purity of her power. Felt the difference between corrupted flame and the real thing. And some of them, not all, but some stopped fighting. Surrendered. Chose to step back and reconsider. The council leaders saw their army crumbling and did the only thing desperate creatures do. They ran. Shifted and fled into the forest, abandoning the warriors they'd commanded, the cause they'd championed, the lie they'd perpetuated for generations. Maren could have pursued. Could have hunted them down. Ended them. But that wasn't her purpose. She let them go. The battle wound down. Warriors on both sides pulled back, panting, bloodied, staring at each other across a field that had become both battlefield and proving ground. Cashin shifted back to human form beside her. He was hurt. Deep gashes on his shoulder, his side, but alive. Whole. The bond between them sang with relief and pride and love so fierce it made her chest ache. You did it, he said quietly. You actually did it. We did it, she corrected. She turned to face the warriors, both those who'd fought for her and those who'd fought against. All of us. Together. She raised her voice. This is the choice I'm offering. Not death. Not punishment. Just truth. The flame isn't cursed. It never was. It's a gift meant to protect, to guard, to serve. And anyone who wants to learn what that means, who wants to build a world where power serves justice instead of corruption, she extended her hand. You're welcome to stay. To try. To be part of something better. Silence. Then one of the enemy warriors stepped forward. Knelt. I want to learn. Another followed. Then 5 more. Then dozens. Not all of them. Many slipped away into the darkness, loyal to the councils that had fled. Choosing the familiar comfort of lies over the uncertain promise of truth. But enough remained. Enough to prove that change was possible. Enough to suggest that maybe, just maybe, the world could become something different. Marin looked around at the faces watching her. Some afraid, some awed, some still uncertain. And she realized something. This wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. The councils that had fled would regroup, would gather more forces, would come back stronger and angrier and more desperate than before. There would be more battles, more choices, more moments when she'd have to decide who she was and what she stood for. But tonight she'd proven that flame-bearers deserved to exist. That they weren't monsters. That the old stories held truth. And that was enough. For now. Later, after the wounded had been tended and the warriors settled and the compound secured, Marin stood on the walls watching the sunrise. Cashin found her there. Moved to stand beside her, his arm wrapping around her waist, pulling her close. "What are you thinking?" he asked quietly. "That this is just the beginning," she said. "The corrupted councils won't stop. They'll come back. Bring more armies. More stolen power. More desperation. I know. And we're not ready. Not really. We have allies now, yes, but we're still outnumbered. Still facing centuries of established power and corruption. The odds are terrible," he agreed. "Probably insurmountable. Definitely going to involve a lot more running and fighting and barely surviving." He turned her to face him. "But here's what I know. I know you completed 7 trials meant to break flamebearers. I know you faced down 4 councils and made their army fracture. I know you've done impossible things already. So when you tell me we have to do more impossible things," he smiled. "I believe you. I believe in you. And I'll follow you into whatever fire comes next." She kissed him. Soft and deep and full of promises about a future they'd have to fight for with everything they had. When they finally pulled apart, the sun had fully risen, painting the world in shades of gold and hope. "We should get some rest," Cashin said. "Recover. Prepare for what's coming." In a moment, Marin turned back to the sunrise. "I just want to stand here for a few more seconds, remembering what we're fighting for. Why it matters." He stood with her in comfortable silence. And through the bond, she felt his absolute certainty. His unshakable faith that whatever came next, they'd face it together. The world was changing. The old order was crumbling. And in its place, something new was being born. Something that might be better. Might be worse. Might just be different. But it would be theirs to shape. Theirs to fight for. Theirs to burn bright and beautiful until the very end. Would you have chosen her side? Would you have stood with the councils, with the familiar comfort of lies and corruption disguised as order? Or would you have been one of those warriors who stepped forward? Who knelt? Who chose to believe that something sacred had been twisted, and maybe, just maybe, it could be made pure again? Would you have run toward the flame or away from it? Because here's the truth that Marin learned in those trials, that the temple taught her through pain and memory and sacrifice. Power isn't the goal. It's never the goal. Love is. Connection is. Purpose is. Power is just the tool we use to protect what matters. And Marin, broken, cursed, impossible Marin, she learned to wield that tool not as a weapon of domination, but as a shield. As a light in the darkness. As proof that being different doesn't mean being wrong. She's still fighting. Still standing on walls watching sunrises and preparing for the next wave of enemies who can't accept that the world is changing. Still choosing love over vengeance. Balance over domination. Truth over comfortable lies. Still burning bright. And if you felt something in her story, if you felt the rage when she was betrayed, the hope when she claimed her power, the ache when she chose Cashin over completing the trials, if any part of her fire lit something inside you, then maybe you understand why stories like this matter. Why we tell tales of wolves who refuse to be tamed. Of flames that won't be extinguished. Of girls who were told they were nothing and chose to become everything instead. Because we all have that choice. Every single day. We can accept the lies we're told about ourselves. Can make ourselves small to fit into spaces that were never meant to hold us. Can let fear and shame and the voices of those who benefit from our silence convince us that we deserve less than everything. Or we can burn. Can claim our power, whatever form that power takes. Can stand up. Fight back. Become the thing that others fear because fear means we're finally refusing to be controlled. can choose to be flame made flesh. Marin made her choice. The question is, what's yours? If this story touched something in you, if you felt Marin's pain and celebrated her victories and held your breath during the trials, if you want more tales of wolves who refuse to bow, of flames that consume corruption, of loves that defy kingdoms and bonds that reshape destinies, then subscribe to Shayla's Romance Library. Because here, we don't tell stories where the broken stay broken, where the cursed accept their curse, where power belongs only to those born into it. Here, we tell stories where the girl who scrubbed floors becomes the woman who burns kingdoms, where the wolf everyone dismissed becomes the legend no one can ignore, where love isn't a weakness, it's the strongest magic of all. Hit that subscribe button. Join this library of flames and fangs and fierce, unbreakable hearts. Because Marin's story? It's just beginning. And trust me, you're going to want to see where the fire leads. Subscribe to Shayla's Romance Library. Because here, we tell tales that burn.